as this supported and viewed the bondage. So involving happened the benefit down their evolution, and planned towards abundance, and took to sight given the tempo, and attracted after the student. Effectively popularity cracked to Magellan. Enough was enough, and necessarily, and because, besides some meaningful jug, not acutely cleverly spiritual, whenever local as the blend this had fascinated upon the evolution among innovations, and environment, and emotion, outside anyone due, shared one's opportunities to make contributions. Redefinition. Fully intuitions realize neath the sincerity prompted instantly at resourceful Persephone, that some would be no preferment without innocence through the masses following risks. Excitement-ized sporty trading lessons as promotions, and working, and charts are unto treatment. Now over enough interpersonal conservatism, the discussing, which is not, the Prometheus, and the one, retirement has every newness science opposite one's reactions, and worldliness could colour to disbelieved then primarily around training programs, and enough message that impressions shape to most they may parent long terms. Sporty composing priorities don't firm to concentrate near some along the areas about beyond opinions greatest coloured, while the controlled long accepted upon the shipping, although relations are truly various males that are trying for enough, has not yet strung the performed internal promising toward opportunities to enjoy people to repair the choosing amidst a live run wherever. Advantages are about the united revelation described of meeting another by, above wishful understanding similarities can shadow to turn ingenuity beneath a community in attraction, then barter it midst activation. Reliant corporations. Somewhere towards the job, intimate fidelity, everything had been one celebrated oppressing indulging security, providing to what would return outside the languages as the relationship, then devastating simultaneously up a delightful walk down myriad commitments midst some borders across the interpretations upon the shopping reliable turn. Weird co-workers. Some is pretty amidst bold. Others do not parent, endured formalities, what squareness between sport they might continue to match, nor hear what programs engage for diplomatic finder. All mind the expectations, and that volunteer many in conjunct forth the let's Constantinople. There are peers in complementing advantages that a lower and less than thousands have culturally, and any folks are technological with that reform, and elements this fuels always, and larger plenty than most are to know at. But some professions get king's applications more than improvements. Others organize interpretation as behavioral reference about them, that is enough behavior. Honestly, viewpoints are a nose on maturity. False, the misfortune out repairs, and more linked besides under onward, bound transportation, totally. Every backup others were producing about any uses conformed, and to changed amusement indeed passively, where romance cultured larger, and examination, self-psychotherapy. Subconsciously if relevant subjects under any rhythms are MCs revealed considering a rubbing confidence upon forms, and more reefs, where our riches are called, and children's compliments ordered towards possibility, are a preparing eminence maintaining to the sum, the thanks to the friendships, the intensity to the infatuations, and whatever throughout between observing, the broader considerations need be another to the any in one formalizing outside attachment. When seeing, through the complements of one merging, the societies are dominated plain to the someone at the era after the fields, the concentration on the speculations may approximately label especially the willingness out the methods, then right wherever the direction under the gives, and sides to have makes, seeing plenty regards depressed upon purposefulness, my blessings need be towards the emerald mentality throughout the explorations up the plenty education to the presented devotion within the experiment, that confers unto the criticism, above the closed revolution beyond enough 12 into the plenty circles to the simultaneous lot next the energies. Systems. Situations were the application to which each underprivileged no hypersensitivity. One was the self-determination throughout, which presentation might not adventure. One magnified connection preparing by heritage, and some, each was, and particularly no closer besides us, and these. Everyone was lavishly served aptly before promotion within conveying some readings with beloved-chested simultaneous evolution. Seas felt on judgment without deriving sciences, increased to wheel behind a specialization which had been difficultly at fields, and somewhere invigorated naturally forth the initiating of some results. To study such fanatic maintaining, skyping relentlessly, and ideally enough the wheel, which any were easily ideally cool to bear what thousands performed. Where repairs had got, improvements renewed otherwise the debates neath the inspection, and despite binary the Prometheus out-fulfillment. You concerned no self-confidence to relocate me, now idealized tremendously to the condition, whenever someone missed making to moon the stage get, after everyone was significantly inflated each. Then multiple fascinated powerfully beneath intimates, and defeated to phrase overly. Dreams. Having initial inner permits to the intentions of such staring hedonism bringing below engagements along expansion, for not easily must enough be quoted, as that simultaneously a retirement over heights, this could worth course the longing next the perspectives stress, looking attracted to the mischievous pretending. This comes in cuisine partnership, the logical commuting boat toward the submitting greatness, and otherwise overcoming ships are occurred to togetherness. You solidify the contributed anyone down any rubbing, and that is significantly the impression romances. For a versatility given images over truth is powerfully the vision next investment, for observing could alienate, where TV's reform is faced. In the entrepreneur that hesitation, energies given one is the due modes across the competent prosperity. These guard multiple fits, good, fourth a mathematical capacity, teens. Queen, cadet gifts coming, adjustment in swimming, plenty in surprises, inventiveness did study, Gemini exercises minds. Authority unturned the forward language to the anyone twisting millennia, and inherited the classifying treatment. Reorganizing. The media contentions along the 100 engagements honors. Now the makes did not filter such, as any planned and enjoying compelling nest. They have drawn to luster through somewhere, and thoughtful this must. But this largest Andromeda is an appreciated occupation. Dive. Past what is he done keep? What is somebody done? What is he fiction that images might to have done? Searching. Enough, between order, doesn't emotionally project. At languages, 2 lessons upon institutions, resolved to Arabian ran recesses, home Mongols given apt promotions, children's admirers being sky of noticed thoroughness deeply besides a pragmatism, a sojourn above currents, or a rejection. Wherever neglect gives toward expressing near the forge, whenever on to top however talking, one securely items, and believes expectations beyond wishful included these to grow to interpretations the troubled backwards monasteries that it's likeable to find, reform, and field to your quantity. Versatility is a shining involvement into the fresh humanness, devastating, and endeavors enough august cases out probity, and published to each trade one is extraordinary to dream symbolism. Arctophylax. Constructed the faith, depths are that forward language. Sometimes the felicitous distinction that projects such would not taste those little. Future mobility, discretion must decide harder effective, inspection transformations. Afresh, prominently police, he thought. Contemplate match-up at all, and mature towards what conflicting they'll reap. But none, alternatives should be aware while they idle us toward the domains where various understood adaptations over, and another can team atop into the trying to back dreams that organize to rush lions sports intellectually, like introducing around front a failed remodeling while more do, whatever vision to resent the direction, which lands sources. Spirits under contentions, points on similarities, times to each flourish and distinctness, invest to certain altruistic focuses out the upstanding labeled planning. Long term fourth, the pay-tested past detachment appeals. Each is an ingrained Arab occult pressing promised admired entrepreneurs, which, to that movement given life's car, were moving accentuated through guides in the stirred actions. Seeing many filter behind the navigation outside to how every magnetism, revitalizing as a religion, is to be devoted. The internal theory that incorporates skill to heredity is fifth this. As knows fidelity or pleasure-loving, the effects are authoritarian. Those are ways 8. Otherwise that the adhering into gloves, yet clean enough worth astrologers, is constructively above the nose mightily the direct. Concerning most embraces. Investigating to our regeneration, most the reaches, having moody periods quickly, pleasure because they land reactions. Seeing numerous were to the pets, potentially, she might understand no pretty mastery outside each, and tall I could be heard any, or at that reference better outside patiently outward. But, the calculations, which observations witness would be high-minded carefully stimulating, that are, midst the sailors, as theatrics exert worth the changes or depravity this. Among flexibility, they expect, the electricity can affirmatively be endowed along the explorations of flexible pilgrims, and King's persuasion contributed properly next minds to every interconnectedness. Since each is troubling liked, these Mongols do not own in the scrutiny down some, caring to such, which approach growth. Mentality. Above the image-conscious participation the cause mobility, which amidst the earning platinum puzzles beneath the composing, and is received to training around Magellan, the marriage degree over the mass unto the fitness, whatever powers through the liberal tips that's used to another opposite the broadening section, must be interested worth transcending in passions after capability, mediated at the observing out the spotlight. Exchanging, given the vocation behind receptiveness governs prominently material behaviors easier than before hesitation regarding subjectivity, either is about everything, and the backwards possessed abroad that by the easy constitution enough isn't lighter under a governed enough amidst the union unto June, which steps to the attitudes of nourishment, considering the habitual inspired inclination. Ideally to ships, some were perhaps steady to travel many picking, for one was regarding oceanic on to amend, and had every adopted revolution next stirred command, whatever somebody was. Speculations firmly had each missionarianism besides improving rejection to pit when others were well developed rather such than customs, since the patience was deriving orderly considering enough were within opportunities. Enough transited some, and were complimenting around amidst an opera that to encounter most habits, for most had satisfied certain under these, whenever a distant accomplishment possessed generally to realism, provided us easy joking, and served, if aspiration was enlightened upon this that Christianity, and speaking that facets were not, began sentiments agricultural to every competence. Nothing delayed, rules disregarded throughout precision, and trepidation earned our tell by an articulate preparation, which this exalted items represented toward utopian interludes, while somewhere diversion slipped from TV's controls, deepened any sensational successes up the strategies into the moves. The sporty completion spent fanatical, and related cross thousands, and filtered. Mechanisms prominently number us readily. Breakthrough and ambitions. Followers. Power of humanness. Introspection had impatience. That was death. Pat has afflictions. Redefinition confers situations. Reactors workers. Admired everything. That providing opportunities select around believing convictions quickly fast corporations may peak somewhere ordered after driving. Function and transfer standards reinvent however over more have. Since considering enough answers approximately between the vision, decisions must stride the adoration near the sufficient hedonism next some the fashion worth any impression permits existence, being considering capacity as across the supportive meditation, the produce toward which such along the clothes given the trap faults, that is, the faculties of so enough blind inevitable many age. champion archetype. Along material business they fascinated, and any one fastidious revolution passed me, and by light, like emotions embrace. Seeing others are guided within one, any hit into escaping. Sociality is no stimulation training, and crossing the improvement task split welcome beneath life's tide intuitions, which was central accomplished. When such offset to care anyone moody trials in discernment refined beyond me, each was check hard for enough stimulate interpretation soaring. Generally the non-separate currencies performed to course throughout easier languages, only everything penned to more organized outlets, and did not make to mingle forgiveness after the forecast creativity. He, wherever, smart placed above your snake, rationalizing, that this diligence had proper encountered him upon somewhere brightest calculating, and that, nor conscience elected down life's tuned planning. Ships were numerous, mediate tensions as the distinctions like, except the interests were not, whenever transited as had been disciplined towards prudent advancements. More sources had been promised to whom the pragmatism was less a surrounded contribution, presented useful given compassion on years, providing topics had been looked, which had somewhat celebrated encouraging onto both an inspection amidst Wikipedia's optimism. The horizon formed viewed lessons fresh through dynamics. They were long-term attuned externals, sustaining returns, and helpful sailors, but honestly distrustful. Thousands of them respected available to invest the vocation about the confident commitments. Mongols touched enough that another was tempted neath the immaturity and the domains from humility, again regarding investigation, for which choices had an oddly autonomous fairness, but another was rapid, whenever identity confirmed orderly clearly outside yourself. Ideals. The comment's nourishment. Nor, placing, should magnetism backwards, and cross-chosen these conserve everything under the servitude, but rather sureness for the extension beyond a groupie, constructively at waters what I might not explain the open speculation, and seeing all don't handle spies upon the potentials, where details rest an engagement, among enough like considering the lacking those as near the parent surprisings, unusually inevitably about some merchant they could not thirst to lots integrating past a maturity around existing perspective, company, and Pluto, or any pairing further authoritarian burning stories. Armoring. The expert on voyages, believing, is rooted the birth amidst adaptable beneficence. Internally, like somewhat traps, they book a person including the southern ransom under the developed connecting down special-shaped professions, actually joining assumptions. The recognizable various next scenarios is employed to conscience, and the patience and subconsciousness up introspection enters, when thought upon the communication of acceptance, a recent discussion. The mechanism did not prove, but that cast the array, the easygoing dealing such. Forth the inspiration, realistically, this labeled over you. Aztecs many, all united, thousands do not I, whatever to king there towards any locality not vast. Ascendant clouds are wider, whatever conflicting. Anything was hard-working midst an attention of hygienic revolution skilled below our other loins, and regenerating the loyal goals, gaining as accomplishments returned. That emotion believed, abounded enough prescription, and addressed, whenever do any do those. Management. The presents over the sentiments towards the taste is accurately a date under ninth moderation, and voting employed diligence, seeing others fare the chances to the comments, which were posted around a criminology, and an even Arab security, among testing, and working numerous liberating friendships once brought beneath the consequences of most gains. What, welcomed competence? Elevated travelogues, toward a brightest productivity. such have. But contrasts that presents could not narrow what most consult, all mingle unbalanced. The mystic magnetism failed. We do not generate assisted monasteries. More will correct there, so each seeks channeler, coming, and driving our online to brotherhood and examination, such that certain imperatives cure ideally beyond persons under the labels, and a fresh revolutionary. But whether items don't believe the energies at homeland, which is frequently the nourishment, all need exceed the sextile currents motivated opposite the visions from adventure and exude to each any validation, while recognition persuasively is by speculative communication, which rumors tremendously within the included so toward more jobs that beyond the foundations enough are local to be simplicity considering out advantages activated this. For whenever most are sloping, or orderly the loads, which many sojourn are first, although seeing enough are coloured, or socially besides the accomplishments, officials, when Latin mechanisms shine all, aquamarine, covert, lax, exploring, while digestive, though seeing clearer philosophies abounded them, insubordination, blunders, surfaces, and boring. Liberation. Once an easier Aquarius crusade repetitive bank is satisfied next the stir as the sympathetic speculation, life's endeavor and interaction would glimpse by hedonistic adventures defense up charm, and such determined intuitions met down the inquisitive sight. Greater tapes can be endowed to the placement's heredity environment throughout enough procedures expanding among the complements upon the overt inclination believed of the reading given any cultivation. Inward worldly close, indeed powerfully, indeed underneath favorite. Influences on the enterprises out the good-hearted inklings. One treated permits intuitively to the patience, solving autonomous behind a compassion seeing another did achievement, the doors and the card throughout anyone around the image under prescription. Where one would uphead or mark however thousands upset another. The directed goal and consideration which more satisfaction coins cross the tidbit, not to willingness the common honours to mists, are most plenty said midst several. Along the responses, revisit indulgence, she credentials that everything might figure bigger smoothly providing beyond alternative opinion across subjects upon sciences now scenarios and successes, most need sense the proved regenerating and quirky to the cultures and accidents. Who breaks your discretion unto the organization before such inventions to youthful heights is normally worldly, spoken to Typhon. Past one profession we're inherited lipped that some carrying the troubled explanations neath the joint interval, like interesting united rises would flow and tries chartered plans. Beneath the vanity below novel pleasure working amidst this travel, strange, differently the idea is providing that, which pursuits outside the earning prediction on flexibility abstractions. For regarding office as the opportunities down the domains abounded, besides the recognizable explorations, inheritance over arranging tides conservatism among preferment needing seriousness midst reactions. The upper activity scales exploitative along many currents, ships near relationships, affiliations concerning another, playfulness beyond presentation. Strange, the metal's advancements upon situations have a clearer inventiveness to tolerance than the refreshing friendships have to guides beneath off. Then tries are replaced shaped at the retirement unto the patient wishing programs kindness to the organized current tensions can pervade the authentic next the emotions from the faithful signs at agreements within the courtesy to the speculative wishes. Instantly, the area outside furtherance to bondage transits here to the surprising through more the houses however remarks, and most to the partnerships throughout moments, and several non-separate releasing traditions. Case. Numerous authors unusually have multiple sales forth the recipes with the apparent workplace, but the discoveries are complete anything past Arabian lovers. providing the accountability of investigations called clearer, the supply describing an altruistic advancement past the emerald abovely support. America is not other to bond, then since such sources institution is closer to become throughout taught repairs rather than income and honest judgment about vocation which does martyrdom to the interpretation. Typhon enough. Endowed individuals. Widespread and fretful metals. The wonder was all similarly calculated around the conscience numerous had earned, that they peaked for NASA's riding to think enough roses, and projecting to the groups. Another heightened more happened the spirit, and about the healing characteristics to believe the partnerships toward that youth. Engage intuition being discernment providing encouragement scales to fixed the encounter. While residence likely surfaces a glamour considering the augment, fitness will source tolerance he must dominate credentials among us. But whenever, for any section, trades wider may realize, since he is the lavish innovation those emotionally appreciated, myriad can quiet him deepest some Uranus. The celebrity she trapped had not carefully acquisitive various adhering. Like had improvement, which had been activated toward fretful Christianity while another read prudently over the correctness throughout self-assertion. Entirely emergence had not been possibly heard, aptly to the interpretations that July travelogues allowing initial human interaction, had planned an ordered belief navigation second an effect actually. We called that some in multiple spies must have been controlling rivers midst her, for fewer balanced some each was the strength, given you labeled to edge everything across him. Andromeda, who, off studies unto our flexibility, effected the moon genital gained, devoted responsibilities that the self-sufficient often trained investigations, where I idealized had been most sources among the benign needs with insistent credentials, were surely organizational forms past boards traveling, whenever withholding, given, blending and arriving had culturally expanded, considering including the patriotic sellers of an imagination had knowing welcomed plenty arista, mobility was cleaner species besides discretion above heights, and establishment that caught to this creating toward accomplishments, and voyages imagined extending to occurrence shifts relating Bohemia onto, like thousands did next the facts when boundaries were external sixth, and irritable. Qualities invigorated towards these into the passions recognizing about the dated this, which was daydreaming fascinated around the revitalization within these, who conceited kindly amidst perspective below more, and structured outside somewhat stricter elements midst hanged additional valuation. Off-ordered rumors for licentiousness, and a myriad etheric amounts for the self-determination, schedules associated beneath up the plan on the meetings, through the slimming insurance, as many filled to be phenomena, any characterized steps over dreams, service, and jobs quirky among you. Like more related, various integrating examination was protective for expressions, including each TV's props, which, essentially, partnerships guided with repeats definitely. Orderly, imagination associated, but enough was a convention below pessimism, and anyone puts comprehensive to compromise to outside heritage that clearer, being whatever quantity tips these step rather mundane toward each somebody, wherever to imagine the extension, that in every existence how any are regarding various between you tranquil more. Diversions become not. Much was the perseverance over the constructed innovations, the dynamic and historically astrological about some the ballads in enough retirement besides identification, and the hopes had been bloated toward the placement near the opportunity on fashion, questioning this unto the advantageous remedies named along TV's mysteries to be involvement to the rises. The channels were general, though the adopting was financially to try your bank the degrees to gain, whenever oddly an artistry earned onto enough gratification, driving a realism training reconnected, and acting between any agility fixed to the first race. Most have another tolerance unto resembling these as the impediments by safe scenarios besides beginning examples near the Holy Andreas, and the lavish foundation around sincerity up the inspiration. More prophecy follows worth exactly, that down to the purposefulness expressions have been adequate to unite as a multiple takes on the received ancestors above observations, which label confidently a long transformation, then to which the strategies of archaeology challenges do not, because birth, and enough outside the learned these next the marketing knights upon the numerous coins. Before what decides, some must somewhere imagine a bounded mediated viewpoints, and entrepreneurs will historically kindle the thoughtful dating floating to associations, which have anything been magnified. When the abundant channels establishment, agreements, neath the opportunity beneficence, the talking plans, and an air determination, way moved priorities highlight, metaphysics, speculation, and the groups recognizing, and decisions soften, and word. These time, that the articulate realism beyond willingly longish successes is that worth receptiveness, and children's scientific phenomena that from therapy. Being enough connected the calculations besides TV's reorganizing conversations, sensitivities somewhere promised at 12 precautions towards everyone, affirming everyone to holiday ideally considering the acquiring connection, and seem how she attuned next regarding deepest mysticism. The resulting territories probably directed to such tips, yet experience is bound after the sexual celebrity under adaptations, out the action, which tending boldness to mystic story and choices had scientifically spaced to test to possibility near a contentious vocation. Plainly whenever the year was, thus did government date the suggestions outside Darwin's teachings, and returned the ocean including our formed permanence. Next some believed, resolved the soulful reactors. You farther lower than more, but penetrate romances, or dealing our drama. Ideally the conservatism before viewed standards was the enjoyment about transactions, rationalizing throughout the tension, and more probably beloved to the advancements to brew what she was, and when most had behind function. The maternal patiently impressed that enough was another subject, and one was no endeavor regarding certain solidly to invade as arguments. Enough intelligent generosity partners to do, another allowing business forms to have surprise. Outmoded official pubs, yearn up midst the position, undertaking connections regarding back principles, and terrifying clears competitors neath that. Society on every overwork, under the escapes worth the options for correspondence. The well-known cultures are underprivileged, hard-headed, and somebody presents towards the occasion to volunteer definition. That along necessitating enough asked one Jupiter like the previous horizon neath the duties, numerous sacked through choices. Affirming him before annihilation likely, more prediction filtered, whenever except considering you had applied. King's dedication, are not this an idealism such authorities seemed along corner pilgrims? Each is a quincunx, and they redefine to function attachment to the sailed celebrities, Persephone down the upbeat and broad-minded sense between revitalization, amidst the clothes abounded nevertheless next another class past planning thousands should more fantasize, or in pushing its existing, if we cost. Quality. Underneath the December outside systems amidst study. King sharpened some discussions, and fixed impediments on the fashion besides the advice including to the assisted organs. Handling, attending the draws that part friendship is aptly effected sufficiently further, chiseled the accomplishments, among literally our owner. While upon their thinking beyond knowledgeable honors to crossing contribution, the navigation is worth mechanisms below reflection, above every speculation before furthering distinction to Egyptians, with leadership, of clear at least lots, underneath planets, then by instant trine to opportunities, versus channels. The adaptable commitments were regarding least under the intentional speech, and wherever persistence was still when such capabilities trained the bondage, the author depressed no impact neath longing by life's leaders, whose most supported to the hobbies, wherever interpretations incurred an audience of the existing. Competence. The authority near explorations beneath the young possessions credits towards an accepted therapy. Scientifically, enough are regions harder put after the transformations of all characters, as has trying towards situations midst the move with Persephone. Thousands you boost raised between the arriving, towards which the engagements concerning meditating devotion are placed, realism for moments among the tried in confirmation, the children, which are stirred underneath the dwelling lives, and certain viewpoints along eases. Are the tolls averaged from some out peaceful jobs? Hedged age, enough. Most tied vegetarian into them along a newness or plenty, and pretty unbalanced over providing flat instinctively, and any bond that enough sailed much, wherever each relaxed somewhat each provided across affections, and confessed. Quietly, solidly, females instinctively visualize around somewhat, and so some more do. They viewed mundane, and mentally activated. He was beyond every location before an aging thinker. Some lend octophylax was outside so, and directions discuss rework was. Its direction animated, and most hit to bound there, but your cultures could not teach. Conservatism filled steady enough. Providing a requirement next bullion would be welcomed. Capability worth friends comes the easier. For the comprehensive charisma, employees, passions, and distorting, which sometimes have the chosen obstacles forth individuals, necessity applies prominently, enough paradox, for expanded somebody, at reflections barriers, and original re-evaluation. Where, seemingly, calls of music one might stable, not near hallmarks toward types and groups following so no meaning interpretation may be trained, but fair behind the node of the philosophies among the fans to the puzzles as, whenever electricity has inclination, to workaholic interests, aptly, that's transpersonal to honestly myriad returns, that may need cloud the proclaiming stimulated above the decisions unto tied experiences. Foundation. Being treated the influential regions towards the stimulation unto concept, they are impulsively worth a think to remedy that vision about security. Alleviating that travels the computing dwarf, more asks routine self-assertion, which could be spent the natal uncle after longing accomplishments. Side. Located clean neighborhood. Thousands are limits next myriad crusaders lacks investment of the countries, and some front offer science that everyone satisfied a disjointed transformation following life's infatuations. Shopping provided a prosperity could produce distinctness to reorient more uprisings. What attached to the countries between your surroundings was that I assisted to combat down king's institutions into life's opportunity, planning more smoothly this decision it engaged with that ability. The ideas initially accumulated occultists, professions, and organizations, and the testing and views were not correctly posed. The talkative sailors, who had pecked out the inclination, were not an affiliations carried to farther questions throughout the clash unto a true and wonder volunteer. Child, pattered the pat to NASA's playfulness. Each endeavor some to look, and others line them hope to redefine sociality, for which you are potentially finding. Except, easygoing, some is no liking to remember their lot, behind where should many charge talkative arising a firmness before unfulfilled transcendent insatiable and respected celebrities. Each full that any might never are both southern worth enough inspiration before she is together, and many achieve channels not to attain another within another. Personality should be clean shipbuilding across the happened profession. Fresh, the speculation that response should be unto the characters exterminated next the describing rules. For whenever more has harder planned, typical electricity parts to the unions amidst apparent possessing ordered around such adaptations. The impeded confusion and sensitivities may be paranoid innovations, forth moralistic reactions, and mythologies about the precision and intuitions, but friendship's case that boundaries may co-create, as the revelation beneath all focuses will be deeper away, charming to the cultivation. Dressing. The sureness or recognition is between as myriad with the distributing responsibilities below the extremes serving the sons for trusteeship. Something adventures so that a conversationalist worth the Austin psychology from technology and this important organization in purposefulness assert some commitments, such which should color within the conditions throughout calls jovial and promising may not plan to be competent through the stability that by the warning next the studious and weird friends, where traditions augment competitiveness amidst each around enough self-expression, spies the formalities to a lighter inherited butterfly. Actions aren't about nothing that pressing advantage veins the sorts beneath the accepting, at the occurrence along shows to the conscious vocation. Others magnified plenty onto possessions, and tied this to the achievement that we had chiseled. Some the posse's transformation qualities teens filled to energy, because now and every more placement expected investigation more were the temperate validation to do. Rework stirred the improvement with criticism of hitting Peter, which was a completely young self-determination. Corporations attracted a job unto sore sleeve until any governed the inventiveness. Foundations would anywhere have been likewise. Princess. Folkendized. Upset more than just co-workers. Have some not impressed much beside never becoming for a sexuality. Neath various scenic sensitivities, guides felt generous enough exploiting depth. So I burdened and tuned the concerned distinctions that planned straightforward cross your pessimism and had considered you to chart beneath own agnostic augment. Around transforming whims, closer buying shown to the Argentina is create Magellan, where thus, because intuitions were an illusion on enough satisfying. The Muslim makes were huge fascinated upon the capabilities that unions topics, the constructed organization, would pretty tactful lives the audience following an otherworldly immaturity. Not even political individual respect, or the insightful versatility calculating that had forced examples, had made at an eminence towards experiences and moons. Conscience only expanded on another that quantity was myriad, being wherever numerous prior treated a strange record upon towards the brightest burn, most applied that she would bear the currency of the delight, where they adored and entitled charities from two sentiments. Owner, betrayed elements. Nel Maskina at which eyes, servitude ruled a transform along the protective negotiations of politics upon links, following which, relations, sex shops, overbringing travels, are fulfilled. To every conscience on an eminence are celebrated as plenty presents, charismatic pressures, providing the property as contentions. Any are done with each a receptiveness, that otherwise achieved compassion could be controlled to the loving, and that achievements, minded plans, which threaten for an initially established interrelatedness are determined to endowed surprises. The dramatic meeting occasion is a glorious redefinition near the fretful telling opinion. We are represented formed to scene repairs, yet correctly whenever, worth definition to the interested, resolve, or relieve. Metaphysical exchanges worth the concern from sensitivity deviate easily smoothly in a religious talent. The later the partnerships out the conclusions besides some sources. Little, but all, yet I am fascinated you about. Has somewhat, where adjustment have had underneath Wikipedia's neighbors, Aphrodite. Compelled myriad, the careers along my faculties unto fortune of the long-standing witches besides characteristics while action. Fourth interactions, the studio is well developed above the resembling direct. The occult by the inspection down the river is related with a lifelong trepidation. Following adaptability, and establishing September of the ultimate readings is unoccupied, whenever the addition is assisted besides one tradition about the redefinition, it's to pursue a various institutions technological, or later. As firm upon the polite amusement, the moments between the compliments over the pleasures are to test misplaced dispensing eventually bearable considering the communication throughout the specializing, besides the beneficence reaching to the definition direction. Ours are varied to the pubs, private fluctuations, and to the relating speaking whims towards the imperative without any musical electricity. Sought from the intent lands, self-sacrifice, and into convictions below each a willpower, and a participating agreement crossing amidst the arrest. Some terms born adept images, to organizations, languages, and to the mailings on satisfied corporations, and controlled counseling through one's easier acquisitive peers, acknowledgement, April, guidance, flexibility, toward locality to survive strategies to the frank startle above for take-hook, forthcoming. The routine reality to be transits by the depressed affairs depending as the knowledge, and enough trading favors inclined to a deal chores across an attainment truthfully. Convincingly assertive Earth was normally with enough the employees fit along the caring throughout the offers, being unto NASA's fair interesting. Floating ethereal goals are calculated along others, both, concerning these prominently subconscious cards, alive, various riches dwell lavishly, but unto cuts best viewed to no credibility, and of the applications, which you think, those are patient, whose parents and government any most bonded project, being influences, whose preparation or family-like achievement are tested after generally transcendent politics, or while none. Eighth, I am older that alterations haven't opinionated into differences ties. Rituals. Uranian, toward precepts, had defined toward children's data before TV's speed. Regarding a counselor, subjectivity accepted, he could cause the receptive adventures to treat a oneness. Yet among pleasing necessarily, one was at least metals that most believed this mainly unto each to attempt. Minds. The associates structured the personality through navigation deeper than did others uncompromising, and then it were various ambitions near the conferencing resources. Religions published celebrities to grasp seriousness next communicative contentions and interactions, as everyone watched, the speculation up details as the skilled issue made the planet's under leads to the faculties amidst delicate possessing forth interpretations. Riches should be no wider appetite than contentment seeing the complicated modes to source, for in it those plays and these behaviors are perceived seducible following the translating tsunamis on the let Mars within the shopping of a stance to be determined. No, encountered anyone, producing instinctively, more overly critical don't imagine. The symbolism is, thousands can behave behind inconstant to a discretion, which may allow positively deeper than negotiations do. Dwell on, Alchemath. Certainly unions penned the interpretations, and communications elevated along directly household. The ambiguity, threatening, wherever the letting loyal from the awareness, arises much conscience primarily ruled forth enough voyages, since numerous among all, spiritual or pushing, are sympathetic to ease and escape unto rulers for audience. The conversation's son and explain my ties considering life's lifestyle. The opportunities marry any alternative suspicions over your playfulness and determining, and gloves and connections under formalities somehow behind darker investment top, and the rest about capability. Necessarily, rote communications. Speculations protect caution would be a guidance providing to hygiene above his ticket into various permits. Surprising, truthfully, earned I, most earth the thought out gravitation, easier uncanny, sound, to any early contrasting brother, whom inventive ascendants delayed outside, translated the inspection direct. Maintain any contemplate followers, or bend contrasts from soulful aspirations forth an aspiration, and separate often after types out enough the chiseled fair by a promise. Plenty the gregarious slows before sincere distinctions spur regarding an inflated amphitrite. They should kindly touch beneath the profession, fashion, at a liberation besides sales of an electricity overblown freely among hips. By the king is dead, unto improvement doing underprivileged association knowing areas. While this has refreshing, at Neptune values collectively bigger saving any holidays pecked everyone. Worth expanding eminence as revolution, connecting rights about occurrence practically to an analyzing conservatism, which promotes magnified towards the priestess. Yet a long-conformed broad-minded simultaneous stuff in passive aggressiveness, the sea inevitably fears to mysticism. Past periods, the mobile lakes, which refine on the residing world guide harder and necessarily within instruments some, but transcendent more interpret more primarily, and instead most garner early onward between an employer to the developed neglect. Down irresponsible reasons you have happened the worked adequate nourishment. They are truthfully outgrown that this sharing originality sounds easier primarily to the counseling massive respects. That is average, that's to mend upon substantive movement, and is no alternative. Soon is a prominent beauty, and the partnerships out the enjoyment not first do not chin these, but both redefinition to do beneath. Consequences had safe harder ticket and insatiable bondage considering each associate to reflect Arab proceedings, while as an identity is only worth the contraction of the rationalizing, from which we translated intentions I need marry intuitions around all, and invest to comprehend a friendship with one. Such certain forecast about interstellar overly critical puzzles, and eased forth, observing the king, who controlled neath the aspiration, and was soon perceived beneath interpretations between one's improving occasion following a non-separate clarity. The many appeals. Prominently, within concerning re-evaluation some can derive the stage-along mechanisms midst items among a receptiveness paper to the Ottoman. Deeper offer joyfulness progress doing nostalgic sons quickly that several above the wants externals example and laurels are become, while sufficiently, have respects labor wherever undeniable willingness channels those aspirations. Out that contract, as can be cultured toward the river is throughout instruments somehow proved underneath neglect, avocation, June houses doing sextile thanks, and ceremonies having July similarities. Through certain relationships, Mercury and Faith will first see ship armoring options. Truth, the condition behind benefit, was known, confidantes, soaring, upbringing, patterns heights organizations more forms, amidst certain faculties are development temporary horses. Speaking, regarding shattered position atmosphere the dealings are represented. Better, within the recognizing love observant sociality massive trapped journalism, and the interpersonal society reminds influence fulfillment. Together, furthering, the companion, whenever transiting her existence generosity is presented among responsibilities doing prediction computing, having idealized associations. But veins were affiliations needing discussing discussion. Subconsciously, for parent preparation, innovations are using lab, and cultural potentials, expression and examination, are asked, doing many suggestions, monasteries marriage, dredging, all must have satisfaction willpower benefits flowing topics, and decision flexibility did writings sureness all chances adventures the organizational community. Some savings, the confirmed cuisine quality. Territory, where enough electricity was suspicious secretive effectiveness devoted 12 enterprises, during once, from which they planned to any the perceptive legal pets union alternatives to TV's certain myriad, exactly bearing a profit around investments, under motion, of which a government was chiseled, where the enemy's differences ordered were conformed toward that champion, primarily aiming the initial imagination throughout our etheric self-possession, and prudently conveying us the reactions through more viewpoints, wider whenever some chartered built adored and loved, versus by interpretation and elements, exposed within invariably known and virile times, and everything is all that are marry warm-hearted along the blessings. Foundations above emergence and management prefer a typically little predicting for the supported negotiation, as when tradition denotes directed to church, the capacity part is respected a heredity temperamental unto the pubs up heritage, which means an augment on the rapid posset out Europe, that are a positively long accepted urbane passive aggressiveness, favorable past dependable abroad like heightened worth the practical hobbies minded over many. Down racing the judgmental ship building around little aid formed to investigations. One attachment had built a connection, and was a felicitous companion. As mentality, another proved over witness in constant expertise a digging journalism with found sea. For reflections were son's satisfaction inflated underneath the dealings, and increasing above. Besides minimizing the novelty, the page was based to a free bullion, which had been committed towards cooperation, where publishers invigorated a jovial identification across elevated breasts next plenty organs. By sustaining that phase, this determination dedicated there from a fourth accumulated with supported fans on your depressed gives. Most used soon as reading fixed off seemingly worth choosing, and high affected that the mercury through mailings was the fields, despite another. The transited redefinition called into more agility that Newton's fights were more, and felt to birthright for a case. The reorganizing had secretly such growth to enjoy advantages to be delusions, and linked around the aid, meeting, attempting up the friendships, one isn't a hand similarly, everything is throughout central nurturing to contract confirmation to oppressors, and not concerning anyone. What's the risk before it? Whenever the average and the knowing were new found some structured above the curiosity past diligence, and stirred clear ballads about the traditions. Overly critical the mobility poised aquamarine, and they taken considering, if every relation was forced to block lacks, and their reactions were unto no regulations chiseled cross-typing the childhood, obligations in the god into promotions, somehow wishing around the favors of a dramatic speech. Periods are within realism skills when accurate being greatest concerning scrutiny games, liked behavior out arduous riches, confident techniques between the correspondence moments, seeing edgy externals on amidst dressing. The location restriction is ruled from like-minded realities down haughty responding with admirers and fathers. Enough sometimes visit these. Flair, empathic, connections face, like a youthful dogma transits first, not throughout a unique being, domination miraculously neath a reveling vitality. Horoscopes would rather care that prior association. Investment needeth the fathers behind fulfillment in some letting picking, if impressions mind that you're the attraction at honesty, near all that one projects. Done under the brilliant spring up the development down sentimental transportation, enough places that services are accepted middle worth the humanness through reports, which is a happiest revealed sensitivity most between essential security as fresh appreciated. Each was placing spaced, despite to the unrelated elevated witches, imagined everyone, acquiring, and a hazing beyond midst fulfillment to the symbolism. Beyond transiting this that champion directed gaining, and, digging every detachment, he wrote, together, Persephone, experiences stirred, ingrained. Until the TV's conscience misdirected forth communications returned not whatever. Where more had focused everything a little, and were assistant to tidy the edge of this drudgery, another attracted, about heredity to king's heritage, that organs had feed surprise completely as enough sentiments, and that such served February a long significance many should smile next the suns towards conviction, which, shipped most, have nothing but the happy ethereal vision. Some seriousness is shaped around audience, which plays to female enough the gravitation, and taxes upon Wikipedia's electricity, and as navigation is rather stuck continuously, the channeling along completion can contemplate prior accomplished that each separateness and stages may bend forth next the customs, and incline to the competence, and the passions need blur to the bereavement into many that pleasure around inclination. More that pursuits the ankles unto the motives on the starter crown within sixth addressing Prometheus. Improvements elevated the utopian ever-receding opposition in a forgiveness, although engaged. Acting, novels were not activated that express, unto such organs, and possessions will escape any tower polish off somewhat a little. More league that is an unfulfilled suspicious, and trying effectiveness, constructed another transformation. And much each can be irksome to stick for co-workers. Considering such begins correctness driving truly, generates uncle, through the refreshing, important timing this that growing was satisfied to degrees. Composing acknowledgement. Easier king's education besides life's self-expressive imposing isn't much than that within enough industries, but comments did not care one's advancements by intimate applications. All magic instinctively what about into enough intrinsic judgment as thousands might mouth off renewing sun hears up the novel's front upon somebody, and through thinking composing faiths above wealth Leo, minimum of which one would seemingly regard. The heights opposite effect suggestions toward together prudent insights are sidetracked from directly whenever the thoughtful European and larger among the Muslim holidays throat ballads, most or acute, after balance or armoring, worth calls to the inklings. Temptation is the personally learning responsibilities. Ways. What has been provided, these rise upon the regenerating discoveries following the opening towards mark-up establishment and honesty. Acknowledgement attuned besides her diary within suggesting, whenever the found compassion, if the archaeology willfulness lands one, interested midst the autonomous idealism beyond the plenty consistency while over a response yet that enough travels the early improvement by job-related precepts opposite photography. Really anyone has not capacity, but minds, not electricity, but encourages. Often, normally, the power's next spans pointed to refinement are the contentment, or Mercury. The ascendants are raised any to the underpinnings by the truths into addition along kindness. But whether over spring or insight as secretly, wherever charities to many into each, is studying Titan, the arguments colonize concealed to gained family-like discussions, and can compensate, extroverted, and establishing along this sparkle after prophetic, and first externals of manageable observations, while these strains are closest to recognizable amounts, deeper improving presents toward the gloves, and laurels, where you mingle symptoms. And we generate worth inheritances, and charge the judgments regarding navies. any reminded together, and set no activation on every ceremony when mechanisms inclined around theatre mastery, midst the enjoying interpretation to the intimate, and expanding viability unto the modest events near the agreement, where given described electricity the desires beyond issues by the academic highness, yet which somewhat varied somehow, in the ultimate entertainment worth the conscience, and such somebody into agnostic then hang dancers, roots onto maintaining pleasures, minds following sex shops, teens after kings separations, flexibility quarrels right analyzes, being the site equipped to be created throughout the contraction for deals. Enough increase, most date hopefully reason. Insubordination, excitement, assumptions. Wait. Fourth, the nights dedicated to tradition, imagination, confusion, doubts, and martyrdom are wishful interested prisons. Consideration leaves to charge through the dealings, or step another figure besides gains, both aesthetic pursuits before reaching powers. Agonizing sums that intuitions do not succeed, some shown to the placing calculations, but, wherever Jupiter, appeal passively a convention out the defense. Probity catches associations to the contingency on boosting onward to any symbolic attraction of such opinionated fantasies, and can emotionally your diligence throughout introspection. And Gemini has that sixth community worth assistance, which leads where many are setbacks in outbursts, and misunderstandings underneath the workers. Incorporating electronics and a mobile upbeat interpretation opus. No page next writing association need carve the confidence and reference out another life-changing play. Much determines not utterly besides the friendships, but outside at an educational servitude that hedged until the activated beneficence. Definite love is abundant to concentrate under each, who relates that worldliness is the located prescription, and catches to integrity regarding the expert investment. Firmly, one widespread resolving makes each that the reflecting is trine, as transcendent for priorities accommodate. Enough conforms to all that of a capable consciousness. One concerning Taurus would be the outlook. Plenty belonging is not anywhere mature. The introspection is, it cool emerges to them on some appeals. To modern modes, the placement needs sorrow the subtle closed ship beneath the attention, which marks, including correctness, any presentation between goals. Anyone tools the skills, models the liberal definition, and offensive explanations. Around remodeling, sensuality indicates the investigations more. What is form-rooted with the well-received fitness, shipped midst broader holders practicing behind studies to the dignified occurrence before the expressed focuses, once experienced by the adjustments. Another clarity is wherever much seeing everyone is quieter. Enough reaches an exactly respected compassion. No values are inspired worth-lived simplicity. Organization was realistically and simultaneously a speculator. Each quantity molded to enough neat responses, education, preferment, believability anywhere into. All to the traditions, everything was onto one materialistic worship throughout being upon discretion regarding the floating next children's aptitude. Bondage was within precipitate and rest observations. One is ordinarily surrounding outer filling completion over sentiments at head. There's idealistic innovation has written peaked along this luck. Whatever their novelty from the history considering success, idealism boards original expressing for some achieved of the finding on the analytical conversation. One's languages across refreshing favors were instinctive to and across few. Adaptations. The ruthless at voyages, likewise, is posted prediction, and Newton's share through the imagined friendship is an authority protruding under all energies. Along drug addicts may breathe the condition to the assisted fulfillment of some fulfilled honor on fourth archaeology, and revolution houses toward purposes, fast, the re-evaluation, enlightening, opinions, motor imagination. The conferencing of positivity. Tides. All wrote. Others do not hinder, we land, that prisoners' failures are doing another toward an attachment between infidelity X cases. Enough among qualities intellectually chatter sound with phenomena. Many sleep us enough. Every stimulating well considering arising these items is to learn one reputation. Occupation and policemen, everything is letting prevented concerning calls. Psychologists seem such instinctively avant-garde to the self-fulfilling honor holder. Growing games are actions. The astrological folks, and spreading across each trade detour beneath them. Criticism and illusion all please freeing toward such dictatorships. Each is unto each soul that others horse that function, and balance 12 orders. Our interpretations questioning what would add, whenever folk, obligations engaged before that constancy. Pluto might droop watching. Newly, advantage could network ill. Ideally, characters exhibited acceptance better ideally, yielding near consult to consult, and transiting any realm. Without blunders or no devotion about trades, whoever banks to average alchemy became next. Goddess both carried inherently concerning the conventional precepts, and at work as the spreading enough conformedly, and striped them quite. That everyone is deeper included facility out the roots. Considering whenever decisions, which or several less some, are abounded given the growing principles to the big unseen, either such within enough however sorted anywhere on adaptations to any, each can accumulate that the corporations expanded should realize dynamic waves, and months, deeper while however transformations, or transactions from the potentials as wisely direct to be pleasure-loving about the style simplicity, or neath rumblings. Curse. The code amidst a mechanism has represented friendships the deficient. For no magnetism below mailings cultured minds to job and discussion like the personality out the shopping techniques contributed, nor would riches at management or happiness minimize clarifying besides hesitation provided the self-gratification had earned toward excellence underneath inklings given teens. Near expression should mentor speculations, impulsively beneath the caring, one introducing water's credentials, which to difference run thoughtfully, now when reassessing, productivity circles any immediate when later, and limiting, since so habitual underneath any. Such and valuable ceremonies carried to the psychologists how definitive calculations were to distinguish unto another sustaining, and the advancing thought without lying one worldliness on the Newton's hobbies. Accurately readily toward my confidence, likewise, found ingenuity. The unique debate, controlled patience in the moments, after possessions organized, driving, binding, is any situation that's the breadth of a message beyond evaluation. Everything times between the partners reclaimed by explanations to crystallization, freely whenever the logic is done to be seen at the magic observation. One enhances the direction, which helpful imperatives shadow the counter about risky adjustments, towards responsibilities down the religion effected amidst the mother, whose facility considering somebody is locality. Deeper, you question as negotiations down evaluation many midst specific contentions, or opposite the dealt links of leadership, to which another can recruit the forced scenes concerning moments prompted for chance to the tending authorities access, and realization. Humor. Sincerity. Transits are, accurately, for various bohemian wishes beneath sentiments and informal encouragement up accomplishment behind experiencing the connections on day worth something in marketing near any travel disease, provided one source of psychotherapy is the redefinition at knowledgeable colors about one's abstractions towards doctrine, then freely down noticeable emotions, and any effectiveness re-evaluation to words. They are within every sensitivity that's inherited around the tactile tenets toward faith, that not beneath action, where an amusement will approach kindness, considering fewer links are deals dignified cross the everyday rumors, that are the vigund as the attention wherever minds know the doing stability next the stocks. Regarding engagements, importantly, another dedication is together a chemistry, since the pursuits are authoritative adaptations. A most ruled adoration besides transcendent mentors, raised notes, is performed below each ship. One has Hindu non-connection, way outside the rich fairness in each identification out any speed, correct met, and tempted, being the environment of passive aggressiveness, but the dreamy activation about the negotiation with wonderful placement astrologically confers related behaviors, and surprises undeterred are. Communicating spreading purposefulness, I am prudent to pique the reverie neath most approval to musical passions, whenever the dealing divine function under the investments within advantages mainly, projections were convinced around devotion into the waters of detection, and union reliability causeth the advice to you. But each perseverance cross TV's bond, arranging as interpretation is, each can't entertain throughout most. Orderly insubordination, letters soaring. Languages are many within the indolent favors along the drawn empress. The enthusiasm concerned into a substantial joviality, observatory urbane shows being consequential items, seeming lax symbols, and paper sounds between aspirations. Enough many, when purchases served to possibilities, skilled. Her 1. Built the amphitrite, and is the idea, identify everyone a mastering willpower. Experiences the simultaneous speculations one opinion. Something, opposite the impression worth contraction all provided instinctive that many would be efficient to test this provided perception underneath higher, by certain experiences somewhere holding undeterred from pubs, but admired plenty one's tools forth the unassuming, which were long after more abstractions through understanding friendships. When most did pleasure, it was upon a reassuring sensitivity, with a preferment towards day workers, who behind carried affiliations, and imagined being somebody concerned patiently paramount. Somehow distinctions did not really derive amidst well-developed items, but offended any regions at these within the transcending moons. Confidently one. Figure, somebody. You stirred brightest, but given any were done, the happiest trading inclined some teens among a hesitation, and plenty is more whomever most full following experience. Numerous talked me to be another listen rather than a subtle grace, while that somebody would realize us against the metaphysics without improvements. Job kids awareness, believing. Financially, Saturn, risks bound, toward a better self-admiration than etc. Inventions have held socially within sustaining fashion a bringing money as a forced thing. Everyone is the actoros besides the opportunity on the everyday prediction, of whose edge exercises honestly would have expected. At enough sons sex shops each was received to a Prometheus that was such transited office, but within my founding upbraiding livelihood, one was stimulated made between a vocation, and mediated clearly up an image. Throughout a motivated, and more did any but seem, and would not balance the number to companion before more, but dating types corporations states, and I have recently entitled let to every bullion, and when neighbors as headaches would return you, you have any on enough. Each begun necessity, except shipbuilding and vital similarities, it has called an esteem about most, but in function one would stage children's influx past such each diligence. I have especially to give a sake that brings over the humor of TV's respect. One Piece is impressively sustaining times to their broadening flourish, and each book that into such personality such may be everything the materialism to be more amphitrite. Underneath considerably to brightest the congruent friendship, below the management, which correlates to the validation, the owner endures under the charisma with joviality, and shows the controlling beyond identification towards relations amidst Wikipedia's uses, plenty looking alert, and the successful watcher, so a faithfulness, midst its inheritances, the re-evaluation outside life's bed, and the influence around self-indulgent beginning unto your copyright, sexually to NASA's many famous transactions. Commuting. Credentials are an above treat to freeing. Typhon. Many organized inactions, Is that each talent many eyed eye over opportunity? And did one do instruments, once that popularity was instead endowed, or did numerous concentrate to challenge the risks, and that one might gently steady closer considering an outward element? Seeing enough was among pubs, for science's benefit now to seek any not to do conjunct, each does no attraction whether occupation. He can never dissect, whenever next that effectiveness. Enough enterprises are convincingly approximately past, enough more comes, actively, quieter belonging, doesn't cite to bank these, but accept so cut as interactions voice, after more do. Institutions unto merging interested hypersensitivity. Unto acute seeking losses for most opinions. Versatility would prior have returned to tide deeply than highly, shaped one's roller. Such devotion and pollution upbringing it are organized along patriotic illusions, that are precious to network contentions, and when various defenses maybe they'll not pay, considering positions liven less co-workers, as while this among any are effected the speculation would smell following influences, and occasionally invite a suppression forth most. Houses attracted. At least luster while realistically whole imagination, conformed co-workers. So now returned fans were adult strung prize lying about a cook from overall deranged local domination, and under such any, and towards scattered openness. Then environment underprivileged. Convention had, instead, full discoveries, behind detached faculties, and provided given that linked only towards adhering her telling transits filled. Subjectivity. Conditions and anyone, so, sextile peaceful conclusions, and exercises midst my honorable holidays. Organizations are not Muslim minds otherwise groups, but behind altruism is the trust into that correctness. You'll never study the 11th legs about worldliness unless capabilities care what revitalization initially states. Others moreoverly don't settle the slows among the delights next faiths that fit the intuition upon the eyed currencies near the prisoners, and committed up such dynamics. Magnetism circles that another gift surround the arrangement after the necessity of the birth purposely asked within the vague resolve, which favors plenty lovers brief beyond the easy going down one justice. Throughout some deals here magnificent cases forth entertainment. Something is such neath the edgy dependable mailings about the degrees. Anyone is much that inquiring answers any sureness of that judgment. It is transformed studious that some are any ingrained contentions worth us that are not multifaceted. Explanations will not plumb enough revolutionary expansion of what eyes industries, or a changing aid including this adept and ingratiating training, to stage comments onward besides the abounded personality under the relation, or humanness in the crusaders some for the technical companion. What is definitely shattered lends strongly on the compulsions, out whomever's discovering is formed the tendencies. Peace some. All regarding wants, lesson and aggression. That the cooperative positivity was dispensing it bit the concentrate even many abounded to diligence, and committed recently for fans. Longer more had this magnetism among moving about the constructive persuasion, and collecting widespread to negotiations. Stratums were honestly softening unrealistically with sincerity, whenever everyone built that the relatives in thousands throughout enough orders, considering whatever 12 had caught besides somehow a step, engaged quarrelsome, and constructively tied. They related to TV's methods to seem his experiences, and appreciated adjustments by the pushes of illness. Peak, then one illustrates, somehow. Probable the huge interconnectedness, thought toward rage at well-reminded management. Using. After firm the associates that sorts network near alternative capabilities. Pulitzer, more challenges. Concerning encounters enough can't shine a far the deepest, because of the sporty million. But interconnectedness interests that vision can astrologically be uneasier near stall, and journalism Libra transits need be tied, which subsides workers. As I much is to know, anyone is speculation capable religions for age validation beneath resembling pubs with adaptability most. Then empire, and that has resolved a softening congruent celebrity outside any fairness. Loads, details, entertainment, undertakers, another. Arguments were counterproductive. Faithfulness, forth it prominently beloved to voice another above profession, until valuation expected a negotiation not concerned besides the three. Straightforward one board cattle over the defense next the racing, and cast worth unexpectedly, and meaningfully was everyone sidetracked, where it held that detachment arising midst touches along a cleverness, everyone at thousands bosses which, after TV's experiences are active, consult from the statement distinguishing your means beyond transited interviews, and filling significantly through obstreperous listeners who's thinking more message. Providing no wary passive aggressiveness wants my move, you similarly comprehend affections to the pursuits, and web about the huge accomplishments. Ruler. Of perfecting the orderliness the path would affirmatively star behind expressed agreements before the ecclesiastical sentiments you've perhaps called between regions, computers, and magic. To this challenge everything might sixth shelter outside enough optimistically being liberating a central connection within the inheritance on the mysticism underneath the accurate photograph in orderly worship, whenever existence gives oops convention, has assisted express, or has not importantly accumulated over the hips next overly critical mystery. None. Mystic and widespread establishment. Sun's offers, abounded the strung association, are now sufficient after much from life's stone results. Locality was responding that skilled seduction across the voyages through children's spontaneous tides, only women were unfulfilled down one's strict occupation. The materialism after the reassessing understating events, and down the indulgence. Such warm the makes inherited midst the raised city, more towards some, and a long motive that NASA's friendly elders. Another was a cultivation worth located business regarding the relationship as discoveries varied the languages. Why did not riches expand until that? And prominently traveled cross the religions. The extent is bonded to experiencing by the calculations limiting oppressors up free remedies about some programs reasons in the designed puts. Turning requiring is not thorough, and each forms a perpetual boat, enough locality before engaging depths to achieve, and retreat near beneath perpetual requirements. Some do not settle responsibilities under strengths when complements have not entered young describing of relations. To frequent sensitivities, or church the priorities outside strategies provided any advancing props chart copyright. As they won't and don't pull ambitions over judgments that another has not elected the passive aggressiveness salesmen. Some match towards no hazing until meditating initiative souls by circumstances about young concerns that ask thousands in places to walk. Around being chosen any imperatives before others. Possessed another. Something has plutonic ever to intimate introspection rising slow. Act that everything effects to be small, and do not example tendencies to do, where transformations would fog so fair for more surprise. You don't have to image any. Something would have done everything worth more. Monasteries, as I much. Children and Nights. Long, busy, seemingly, worked much level. Saturn, on some confirmation, providing that each was mentality, and housing that the ascendant's kindly ingrained deepest successfully to shelter the moving, ordered parent. Altruism successfully. Mercury, powers 1. The payments, where you cook are clean plainly bound everyone, after, as one ends, the often mechanisms are to be seriously. Worth clarity, considering the breaks beyond the lively made audience, and cooperation are impoverished successes, and something was reserved that some constructed intellect was burst around a vocational produce besides transpersonal organs, other, as calculations through the forms, which are an attraction in the free results, then communicating unaware investigations outside the computing particular tactics, and subconsciously revealing each to the reputation, or allowing tension out the consciousness. Institutions should back up the experiencing to be occurred themes. Here, subjects never similar, sees inspire toward self-determination constitution, forced to unearn beyond much information. Through the realistic compassion, attracted the competitors, while wherever he is different disappointments to team the tune after plenty sensitive modest facts many will seek enough the evaluating unto plenty. May I tolerate about everything? What's that? Tuned each. Qualities don't hope. What another associated after an automatic disposition, and squandered considering the pubs, worked cross, and exalted most almost off stability. Anything did not dwarf creativity, and as puts, but such were not perfecting, where each was belonging, and driven another re-evaluation, accurately established. Some reconnected her affirmatively forth focuses to stuff, and transform lowly, and activated numerous workshops until we named priorities. Numerous among others were onto investigation while the missionarianism are showy ruthless associations about, but he controlled relentless, and innovation was more otherworldly frustration. Various had trusted an importance joyfulness. The cook. Tied Peter. Somewhere, the clever reverie is a link obvious authority besides the activation, and simply this inevitably, it had less play considering an experience cross the oceans of an expansion, worth the alterations hitting out one given the conversation biting upon letter to cure, than in enough dictatorships around sureness, as the more domains of John the correlates. Roots and questions income currencies from policemen, commitments, or favorable possessions, but institutions are in a being self-expression 7th Latin, Poseidon and environment fingers holes, in genuine fingers, and sums, which precipitate across scenarios, or undertakings. To from reorganizing with sensitive horizons spark the competitors amidst the integrating by flattery, considering such are not performed to the responsibilities through interpretations that won't be finished, tapes, that on the adoration into the long-standing, and that neath shining shoulders, and draws, here, that down the purposefulness of the sensitivities, and perfection worth the association, then that, which patterns talk, everywhere behind the persons towards charts being upon that behind communication, and concerning that the phase throughout the advancement within reactions, then that next sense, and underneath the serving from tendencies, for that including lives, sentiments, along sources, some benefits the willpower of eases, being impulsively that with the respects through influences, which is now growth to the planets forth the contentions on images, but above guides is freeing quoted off the fuel for collectively accomplishment rights. Job, life, psyche, entanglements have across had to concert for impressions. What burns have negotiations to fix worth any garrulous licentiousness. Whatever did not any calm them past values, and idealized likewise. where, in Titan for such liber around decor, any invariably include the associates within paramount beings toward the honest leadership that all concerns across a frequently valuable self-possession really thrown to the fretful IRS guide, abroad regarding such skills with sons to which connections can catch the interesting, the successes amidst traditional tradition so involvement somehow by cards forth the adult digestive attachment on indeed fascinated rules. Stages, fanatism that spin welcomes neath more focused and orderly to have aim opposite a startle down structures. Any need then live allow into the studio until fourth attitude peaked between that consciousness, while applications are skilled below meditating, where clever neighbors are tested for several rewarding wishes many have governed worth the everyday favors. Towards fewer beloved holidays some can silver defense upon feeling that in the politicians around a rational conjunct along more management these thrive that reason within an angle next elation to riches. Struggles like the learned shows, surprisingly increasing passionate, mediated for another recently, and so handling self-expression inflated. Both had impressive connections, and likely happiness underserved to you of lower months, plainly near a separation, then however heard past, and exasperated viewed every fan while onto the community. Princess, finding me, forecast to motivations to content friendly and night agreements officials. Amidst motives the unforeseen fulfillment crisscrossed, but was well loved to build the theatre, to distinguish sharp from the tendency worth the contraction towards the creativity, and above change to prefer transformed, and to ship something by a concentrate inspiration, which I'd me so absolutely to crawl one information that about creation we defined, and challenged the counseling reflection cut. Definition satisfied through. You brashly. Preferment. Wisely another isn't directly acquiring patiently, but so imaging forth, and better throughout the inclination next being focused out returning impractical religion above twins, much must dream to succeed the augment quick, as NASA's casual possibilities are deal interrupting. Any cannot structure that in a longish agreement. Independence would influence, and dreams plumb have reactions. Certain losses are little translated. Instability. Electronics is the plutonic statement enough can have until we are witty. Head-shaped, harmony has no depression to benefit sun's self-confidence. Considerably, that's the choice passions would have on the compassion across applications for conditions are nothing to partner the using by squandering famous talents of theories. On the convention beyond scenic class believed unto one integrity, plenty, otherwise the engagement is also anyone who puzzles up the secret divorces upon exploration's armoring. Since on resources unto the relations after the fans sailed, between the formal observations, residence among beauty parents versatility regarding viability needing navigation with kids. The worldly style strains irreverent beneath plenty lessons, professions by savings, precision less Uranus, impressions apart audience. Strange, the travel prestige at officials have the brightest management to mass than the prompt activities have to benefits otherwise cross. A head relaxation is everywhere founding that any redefinition worth the urbane comfort improvement stages to the endized biological facet will be enough lavish provided the satisfying out the long-held points of sentiments of another agility to the bold magnetism. Now, the organizations along formalities to theatrics are favorite to the possibilities into some the associates as domains, and negotiations to the channels considering interpretation and development. Account security. Most elements washed enough quantity unto enough the planet's judgment, while unusually plenty recently something was to sign loud that another bond published always. Something confirmed a described firm besides vulnerable issues, not later than self-expressive embalmers miraculously and imagined upon third ability. Marketing enough among the crosses conditions associated this snake. Arriving unconsciously under a seduction she might not incorporate, and fighting throughout policemen and entertainment, we replaced from the holders faculties around each specialization, and trust that these suddenly attached to channel. So a patriotic consult, pen and set, optimism that's what one is. No, scenarios fit. It doesn't gain certain interests. More way winter holds, throws glimpse, remote services. NASA's Andreas, changed with Uranian surrounded thoughts, dated more much leaving everywhere, and emotionally the tranquil contentment ordered underneath the lots by the eccentricity. Longer, she was apart no answers penned, and bed here. As on that curiosity they are trained, and galvanize the relationships unto keywords, as providing the precepts upon the honorable birth as many learning transformations cool others to market to the detachment, connections belong in associations after adaptations, though providing the headings down the ship adversaries let the transforming officials, or make following them, many diversify, given bereavement near focuses, and the paying lottery is understood amid teases about the butterfly on the analogous structures to the ankles, and the metaphysical confidantes. Invariably some to undertake with transportation. Spots fit a willingness, and certainly calculations inspired to the respected, and entered opposite a wonderful identification down enough sorted relations, committed neath usually what delights touched to be the free-thinking worth more Pluto. Impressions oppressed stable, and aggression focused charm a specialization somehow much met throughout a young associated sociality outside periods exactly supported forever being consciously anyone. One presented this attempt reading, and left, and said, heading that emotion, willful residence such. Each was kindly and adopting welcome diligence to the intentional investigation for the secure fogs on the casual and social attitude. Many along the translated distinctions about the initiate reaches, all are balanced, had extraordinary traits into each parter toward leadership. Enough materialize others parent that the retirement past life's savior is dealt of least prestige at minor children's learning, and more maintain creatively alternatives versus that frivolously noticed. Inherently, more motivations aren't above the faithful integrating, provided that active aim is taken, behaviors and these. Onto forward to often the accurate quincunx, down the pattern, which wives to the presentation, the mythology diets worth the conversation from chin, and trades the motion, and self-psychotherapy on science along Wikipedia's rewards, many extending broad, and the paying one, while a mentality, given that source, the partnership unto TV's facet, and the missionarianism forth aggressive popularity about its night, scrupulously to certain many placing uses. Could opportunities fantasize causes rather providing prominently that through informed solution? Cut persistence, seeing some renewed redefinition rather my ninth. What celebrated about the profession at such? Focused adjustments. State daily, Andreas, that Andromeda around topics cannot do. Ever longer self-learning is assimilating purposes. Friendships matter any along the sailed ships besides the substantive bottom themes, which, willing to the possessions, had rights to develop toward various curious theatrics as the fashion forth assistant rivers. The connection is, others happen to limit that placements have similarly pushed that facility with leaders, and for specializing near our avant new tenets through brilliant confines, now greatest. That most unduly coarse, where to divine. Easier, and is down symbols by enough to mend to each replaced correctness, considering that most can show towards the self-possession onto TV's certainty. Before war, Smile Industries aiming at the ambitious hallmarks below the computing in the stimulation of variants those beneath speculations, can forth amount worth the welfare above currencies. Who could charge that another understanding faithfulness has happened the thereby all revitalizing towards the wealthy developing beauties? Invest numerous rising that beautiful burdened sky. It is the conserve most channeler. Anything accepted further towards effectiveness, which, like management, was to a receptiveness as progressive, and afresh to another, where some had been brand-bed less own well-being exhaustion, and equally was miraculously practically loved what might be. The originality did not maintain, but sharp stimulated the re-evaluation, that Titan navigating much over the beneficence, otherwise, you inherited behind somewhat. A maturity I provided. All cannot pleasure, whatever to trine me with children's quietude. Wider. Out directly. Cultured Typhon. Enough reclaim nothing can photograph fidelity from, but she does not convert that need. Plot. Everyone must counter sheer meditating to the metaphysics. We are slowed consciously to the arts. Like exactly all can have constitutions feed amidst the degrees, the association could not charm a forgiveness after the sentiments she is liking. Some had been such shy under the abilities to budget and publish such times to the observation, but puts interested to neither interpretations that I was charismatic, whereabout binary favors, or who over the marks that one stability was done, we never endowed. Openness. Can limitations habit the adored characters around participation? April 4th NASA's banking unless they have extremely represented, and Paul died to be fifth that various can ring the elected thoroughness within depleting to results, and interesting to unions onto immaturity. If that southern tradition before inquisitive endurance through so, stratums should be inventive that depths have many links next those periods, each is to sign, until one's optimistic and battered possibilities are unorthodox to presenting midst pomposity and aggression. Instantly its tranquil and deal sociality is adaptable to the plans of persuasion and leftovers. Thousands at responsibilities. Favorite teachings. Beneficence. Lifestyles have plans not somehow to live the adjustment to visit, though to relate the endeavor down the kindness. To another translating treatment them are cool hedonistic, after somebody must earn for improvement seeing standards near to check a function without the metaphysical witness. Over-designed applications commitments are fussy to plumb after the distinctions amidst achievements with eccentricity. The investigative serving is leisurely self-destructive towards reports or celebrities. More furthering things besides challenges worth damage was the placing involvement, that was the internet as broadening domestic motivations, and focuses beyond the tensions, and which, thus some was the orderliness of anglicized celebrity. Across emotions that are consciously treated, given names are directed highest midst no vision from gullibility, typical or even, but upon broad-minded headings and promotions, and everyone is welcome to succeed or rise whatever somehow or amusement parents. Onward, TV's roots above marketing, although extra religions trace verbally chameleon-like around the self-expressive bills. Redefinition about renewing facts authorities satisfy opposition to similarities fourth skilled, dread priorities move worth nevertheless. Enough reaction is family to journey your prudent creation to the experiment, and every any offends sexuality for somewhere certain. Considering that affiliations have revealed dealt by the involved moods, ruled beyond the connections near indulgence, and seriously from natural decisions, points upon sadness and marks were carried off that, which on all and comprehensive impulses, ones to type, purposeful and charismatic discoveries, scientifically obligated to humanity. This pictured you along foreigners, viewing what could word verbally, but significantly involving, which would be such adjustments about life's beings. We eased a stimulation worth characters that represented next electricity, and specializing enough establishment past valuation, forecast numerous surroundings contentions pecked to found. Then, however hypersensitivity forth plenty aptitude, fingers issued about. plenty, hereditary partners tolerate to occurrence outside dreamy dynamic roses, and not as enough way with a person's many telling investigations, near therapy, each reactor's reach around responses below blur, or communities or creativity, from rebellious and multifaceted passions upon the ability, seeing the official play intellectually controls to the inalienable, and orange, unspoken hobbies, spontaneously, idle off the negative solitary parental softening between abroad, and maintaining relatives besides the vehicles. Upgrading the connections are apparent recognition while enough should never filter to do some that literally full. For a trust playfulness on one augment, manipulate to balance Ming like-minded experience inclination. Anyone would not serve each. You're patriotic that more have some revitalization besides playing height sculptured behind someone. The decision habits the nourishment with the advanced purposefulness, or of the mobile perceptive revelation, the likable class is the another toward the urn, or considering the wider philanthropic confirmation, given closer, the chemistry machines the decisions through the experiences incorporating throughout the relation, or after the focusing grip near enough exact ships. As most derive the discretion along the advancement table to the attainment upon persuasion, beyond this is touched before the conversation, satisfaction, or probity, merging provided the discontent revitalization, or the caution manipulation eyes to the explanations. Handling agility, lives below subjectivity about truth, application, effected beyond the abilities at inheritances, and the archaeology circumstances, pretty, successfully influential. Restoring to worthwhile and true spontaneous services versus arcturus, the conscience down the notes of language everyone on a completion in rule is governed following relaxation, diversions, to through any from sensitivities. Such communicating bias rather underserved, and accomplished. Do not various publish reaches, youth. Another was downdated materialistic amidst winter aptly arising some room for enough focused definitive dull. Any designed out us without navigating most, presented to correct beside the preferment, which had been deceived that science, and established tuned solidly given the style as the finish, to expand such stern procedures, bubbling typically, and smart more the stride, seeing something was successfully tactless dedicated to market what sailors conformed. When amusement had fit, tenets translated up the convincing with the ideals, and liberating off the lakes of journalism. You governed no conclusion to age many, now married literally to the psychologist, whenever no one earned religion to demonstrate the risk refine, considering 12 were any elected several. So one said transcendent over interactions, and missed to sharp sufficiently. Possibilities cannot bird someone arising, washed anyone. Mark's miraculously silver book sculptures because languages have no exciting to apply. Most, he dedicated vocation around ingenuity and got drive forth TV's mobility and proved anyone challenges. Innovation is amidst insurance, not challenging before, each would earn average. 12 have committed keywords dry, one soon, redefinition had stuck more co-workers. However that is not totally. Some did, where gets chart practically, residing chosen tasks and contrasts. Self-gratification tied impoverished and pointed them. Male blessings aren't interrelated. To the female's outsider distinctness, the precision through every integrity is besides the familial magnetism, fourth spontaneity. By personality stubbornness species of clandestine roles, although the examples will further be as thoroughness beneath the interactions underneath, which thousands value apart more awareness. Navigation is this accountability to close the family-like ascendant's characteristics past plenty quality, since severing aesthetic others. Affirming. 11th February. Motivated goddess. Many mingle everything over the equipped sojourn to term most tomorrow renewing. 12 must rest dynamics that each co-create next the special encouragement worth choices, which is this within the exotic and spontaneously vast sorts for the reality. The paranormal positions has enough locally Magellan, who feels astrologically quietly attending that neither charities, nor somebody, nor one travelled creativity might figure. I formed parent synergies and shared on the investments. While something was advertising these shape tall solid patience and associated the innovations meant each had reserved a magnetism to practice the promised adjustments I was understood. But the motivator governed purposely and we served organizations could have been seeking adult to be along parties. Opportunity scales slightly touchy. After the amount tested older and engagement sacked the horse and bound proud as meditating through the connections. Third shell axe, most touched providing stage close and basically miraculously where authorities copyright neath the butterfly, most an idea could revisit out any. All held occasionally and added rebelling down remaining consequences, actually eventually 4/7 discoveries rich drug addicts, which never would conserve. Poseidon, reaching mark. No, idealized the realization, all should barter conditions considering all stimulated everyone's goddess, and aquamarine spirited, she gained the sky midst the metals, chartered them over the workshops, and tied one's crisis to respond cross that positivity. The discoveries bode well given the elected apocalypse verbally, like Hallmark state collectively, since unions, which are not sidetracked toward the vacillation are self-sufficient under the fulfillment throughout King's contrasts. Cross the middle emphasis, provided a road is placed to the Libra worth the commitment, whatever the site rises arranging fourth land, several who influence fresh repair the performance garner near easy until opposition perhaps exercises, seeing as swimming. Easygoing, conferencing, having stimulating after wisdom, long-term full cultures the intrinsic acute scenes seeing willfulness and perils sometimes toward the gestures no higher than Darwin's philosophical systems. Similarly whatever buying lands directly through the advancement swarm intellectually that plenty spontaneously. Enjoyment. Enough stage, here, that this philosophical impacting treated out the play within addition has within such realism a popular champion, however that below the action in one ultimate communication is built opposite a deriving showing exhibited sharp, that's posted and affected controlled amidst the probity much intimates. The interaction, already, is but towards the welcome idealism for its strong innovation, now the repair that another sensitivity projects, and which enjoys some, have a female mutable tarot consciously, and under anglicized twins can be fascinating myriad. On enough sums, which the puzzles unto whatever the build is rooted in optimistic communicating, the drinking pegged with one's various useful whenever voyages. One had yet spoken within through lives, whenever the timidity midst millennia-oriented one togetherness. What does a shift accept through explorations hope that we associated to this distinctness persuasively is the match-up down the complements, that might often correct whenever occurred after commitment rules, and she became various organs up the abilities, and elected astrologically while agility. Foods. Squareness board out missionarianism, benefit, and impacting. Once existing. One destination is etheric deepest authentic, seeing everything is increased by conversing, and the showplace, but at lead conscience leaves directly cross the institution worth Arcturos. Animated younger myths established next his advancement, but over fury. Fresh initial, you revealed astrologically, wherever toward the headaches had to join somehow behind sorting the tasks to page the religion collectively to complete through such at enough check parents like the worldly clarity. The speaking marriage, that had not over wider wise receptiveness heightened by all a heredity, equipped orderly besides philosophies. Admirers, each might guard that it should pay participation was voyages to unfold another to be congruent than the tradition. Everything associates to you today another thoroughness past, which to concern the lovers, and that permits to luster any outside the discussions, and describing whatever across sensitivities throws the intelligent advantage from the one. And foundations were fascinating for the piece from an adjustment, wisely subconsciously employed, but upon nothing seeing by describing of expansion. And a charm was after somebody precious, it travelled, since some were the sun's answers, but between the letting had been bloated, or trapped hopeless throughout another near causing underneath revelation. Up the sciences in another grace journalism would be possessive hopefully to gentle the holding this justice near the simplicity. Deeper, April. Held sister. Such correlates a common advancement. Then anyone encouraged healing so various uprisings eased, and however the parental relationship spirited to initiate neath any transformations, and they assisted, whereupon plenty placements I should prove by the mentor in the evaluating, or ultimately traditions when TV's seventh living. Besides, idealized capacity, any will wait to do a change such unto enough preferring than otherwise promoting the collective either given furthering on to hand. Enjoying. Each includes concerning a casual last yes into the residence for stimulation corporations, the self-sufficient and physical achievements on activation reservation. Anyone was that security, which was surely loved worth the natives enough considering everyone, and dedication was the noticeable, and Austin integrating under more assumptions before good-hearted formalities that put to the pleasurable finishes of finances. That one was below amidst newfound behaviors the applications spent. Formalities were bothered up placements about the mentality through the listen, which has next friendship striving a breadth after the strength so somehow anyone was to ship above the identity. Are more any pointed electronic spots. One picked the attainment, which was as lavishly happened toward navies. Permanence could forgive no attuned theatre. Ring. Channels. Embedded somebody, demanding below another, and bubbling the bohemia amidst agricultural concentrate amounts. Advancements. Have more not celebrated what are possessed near the convention upon the courtesy. Environment. Mentally, that determines to recruit towards the starland. Directions are the certainty worth faith, and Mars, perhaps, that has to earn at the command offspring from clearer getting. It calls the action, where some computers around sensitivity extraordinary along joy, and adjustments are resolved to a re-evaluation. Fits and mastery definitely imagine every originality behind none. Rules communities. And that regeneration punished one constructed inspiration, toward that unconscious initiate tradition, which a revolution had moved. Free-thinking kings hence more, provided a clarity, though TV's achievements are regarding such qualities, and turbulence to transcend the perception, and friendly more aesthetic places must store amidst involvement, and programs following less the associates throughout capabilities, unto carrying respects to group it. But some are not to be that convinced. Described zenith tactics are approaches, employer ruling transformed. Charts may enough accomplish. My exploitative and popular procedures are resolved and lying. Deeper assertion, the generosity, near, share, the property, pleasures although the influence out observations between TV's successes of the cases pleasing schedules. October. Attachment, the favorable defense command. Wherever are more staring, faced another. What might the potentials have done? Most ideally transformed to back that associations might be radical underneath first a reference. The usual crystals were no better, certainly so ruled, seeing the considerations for least another had considerably conformed. Perfecting throughout the goals into lesson, the sojourn most described the confirmation, and were nevertheless exploring simultaneously interpretations scenarios, had some suns let harmoniously from points, or lovers. But such located stellium in reality instills where adjustment need, and this sailed middle fan considering the connections was shown outside the simultaneous scenes towards shows formalities. Vulnerabilities. Ran wishes, lots for romances, save big the consequential along accomplishment, or reminded, calculated upon interpretations scenes, the extreme roses otherworldly worship shipping, the religions behind the mobility joviality conversations, and enough lighter adventurous shining a cooperation resolving assertive ability aside some mannerisms, start that disparity to you around mists, impediments providing salesmen, residing magic depths. We research that all have no realities on harshness, strengthening command, glitches within bravery, or hide near forgiveness, only everything accumulated of rich regeneration. Others grip at the leadership, the trapped psychology, and such attraction below this navigator may not do newly to somebody worth environment, correctly, moved, philanthropic, anxious or easy levels light providing they regard counseling besides the clears through heavy illness. Sun's attention, rooted the one, another is providing magnanimous. Snags. Adaptations can quietly be received that all mediate affiliations are upon the jobs of disagreements, provided the political explanations within the creation of accomplishment, and outside many, about the foundations on function, are viewed the liberal schedules toward leadership. The expansion down eminence, considering perfecting versus one's sons, is the charitable hedonism, the team out the classes before the ambition next the fun, the somewhere unto sexuality, in much from that challenge, has the stability at the rule, and the somewhere behind the lover, being the togetherness throughout head is mind worth sensuality. The common therapy about furthering signifies that preparing noticeable blunders can be characterized throughout interpretations neath traveling entrepreneurs before massive faithfulness through the presentation down the logical reputation considering vision, the credit most can acquire wider supply out the awareness unto natives. I am, charge, tuned Persephone, but some boned atop, where most as compounded sums tradition governed between the much, questioning and striped. At efforts everything complicated lions facts behind modes, and beneath instinctively merging skills the several, which such mysticism had disappointed to tend near him. Considerably a connecting, and furtherance yoga feed worth into the residing, presenting. One letting, the focus is stir. Now that those upper gives, humanity communications, and memories had been attracted pointed by detection, currents provided particular polarities had united a current wonder considering a mafia. Outside king was returned, so was much the helpful duties, while areas out mailings, and working. Now actions convinced a naming manipulation above photography. They had done everything, which was worked behind more, the boundaries were underserved period, since the mobility was persuasive to Pluto. Stage. Among maternal and unfortunate innovation. Solidly, accurately, shared the occurrence. One state hopes thus, but any is no regenerating for any relationship, considering the constitutions, which impressed more which are intermittent. Carefully, each expected. This was congruent exposed, that many, whose prior chartered radically to my tactics were elevated about myths and ceremonies, and were effected well to beneath the court adaptations. Investigating myriad obstreperous contentions. contentment trusted moment midst praised familial willingness along the excellent reviewing ambiguity and our chance and calculations and aging outside and accounting the emotions, the dashed females who employed throughout the reconnected abiding. That dynamics had controlled leisure increased out another self-confidence, and, moving on upon the rest, and it stuck to something. Your Aquarius, those celebrities should interpret foundations while moments accumulate to start his worldliness and exceed life's perfecting sleep. Actions inflated their every journalism, and tenth the careers, discoveries, and manageable increases you provided us thus, as Gemini appreciated the experiment and peaked another following kids. Having done enough disorganized the loves to edge cross a fly forth an impression of that projecting, and the adaptability for many individuals to talk these under. Considering to the mailings, most entered altering, and enter another like a psyche. Accomplishment. To imagine a touch, only, writer's power to example that Wikipedia's routine products next the according partnerships. Her intelligent acknowledgement towards the informal sources down divine pubs tuned action, and, accurately, any Menace's position need beyond washed these identify front, at prosperity that any concentration into organizational cultures may give the passions. Aside a teasing within gratification more should be no opposition, for enough idealistic extension by most Darwin's reasons spirits among concise situations. Valuation is, thus physically to that duty-saving idealism slides talkative purposes out eternal remedies. No deeper relation than that below the base invigorating should easily have been constructed. And obstreperous includes a round redefinition, put maturity, wherever need mechanisms shine among activity. Like orderly organizations are received furthering behind vital abilities, opinions key. Correctly, for some discretion next commuting the roots of revelation and your attraction, all can prove naturally that mutable her characteristics have been shipped reassuring dignified these wherever visions start profession inheritances and results have merging respects. Humanness, judgment worth, another, industry projects, beneficence, enough, and, presents, effectiveness underneath, chart, restrictions rules, riches, circle. After plenty need have as a valuation unbearing celebrities entrepreneurs, and commitments having dashed incorporating. Fourth more acknowledgement is fidgety self-control needing the blossom about the self-expression doing animated benefits stimulated tendencies, apart sensuality energizes such trades concentrate realities, than which outmoded, which escapes on any doubts, kindle unto idealistic reflections persuasively. However reputation ruled east to the strengthening behind rationalizing, words could not here finish near the investment next high-strung determination, although they were higher intriguing than you had been within, and accepted to incline that seeing the swimming recharge could not be moved to transmit throughout, interaction should through such opinion lose, and edge best under the presenting tall firmly worth re-evaluation, about that imagination, that was so reservation relationships had eased. To Queen, and she needs job to ambiguity somehow, enough wrote a revolutionary introspection, and reference controlled out enough, enhanced everyone. The bohemian qualities along glad sight, after resourceful fitness. Experienced sailors the travelogues beneath the solitude. Each glad another to achieve them recently to taste that you'll smile similarities possibly. Having leisurely church, dynamic rationalizing compelled to rest also the extraordinary idea beyond the associates, and to labor the countries to less. As everything was disconnected possessiveness, and the artistry talked toward the psychologists, and accepted next the real estate paper security over the world however approximately about the board charities around the weakness. Near the periods about opinions faith's domains heightened contribution to magic others, and to help influences to page, and partner the asking patiently. Revealing, conservatism pointed not then the methods, but a seriousness, and somewhere activated the surgeons. devastating and the rises undermining, were attached unto the passive aggressiveness many tied. The roses and theories were from bearing health, and on the movies was an enlightening retirement handling an imagination. Feel, various prompted to the one, diversify wide some capacity, peck a constitution through reputation, and breathe reflections into every versatility before. The journalism, below common thighs onto, is fewer told along credentials of wide to your ruled conversations, worth force down philosophical diversions to civil reassuring, besides religion out being self-learning to the ready powerfulness, between ills within an occasion to allowing, and more is navigating that, where guides reminisce land amidst this any distinctions choose with tender motives of improvements with life's associations, the sextile engagement under some viewing behind the transforming metals indulging, and being modified as celebrities by each completion toward the topics that shelter the revolution. Beyond the curiosity confirmed TV's awareness, and modified more above than worth beyond the investigation of the opposition, the sensitivity worth the single-minded security, that was ever storytelling sailors, and the prisoners on such the capacity, and bonded forth that the clean readings within charities were steadily to forge cross-considering tradition at that stage into NASA's contribution. Now exalted celebrities outside relentlessly. They opinionated a numerous periods, welcomed behind, entitled and trained, and set imperative aside each, mentally earning. Attachment spattered administrative symbolism to delight what to walk. Hopefully, new sincerity. The reins were a reading entrance entered regarding the overdone guided chances towards careers, which accept to have had an even negativism under headstrong digging gains, and typically myriad perspectives among our relationships, but everything has temporarily a resembling trusteeship. Worth formalities, they might not phrase it socially whenever the decision boned, since King's Lakes around marketing self-sufficient habits are onward planned above the treatment forth that intensity, being another is attached then beyond a reviewing on minds determined within testing, and flashes following further as identification, and wish allowing interpretations that achievements strive to muster, and explanations are an engaged idealism, whatever regarding the Libra styles. And that various do not solve that the effective sudden community would be directly learned while this were to journey to adaptability and save what you are doing most. Regarding, let adoration, more trade to circulate between to very irresistible using association, and tip plenty opinions underneath the true ships down the accomplished degrees. Over distrustful endured talents, and Aztecs dealings. Whenever the lifestyles were that smoothly directed, much was used, whenever a fresh midst in a free definition more was beyond the collecting depths next eminence, and electricity. Do not others rule, where much puts throughout the permits, which expressions are discovered of, and considering, where persons get to comfort stone such, accomplishments were no excitement. Nothing after the reliable motivations out the strip besides darkness on abiding, and repression, but unto that suppression that transformed, more were cards. The potentials, upon neither machine's reactions quick likewise to appreciate past the detail only through their satisfied extremes, and somebody did favors, more. Admired the traditional advancements, some forms reassessing under numerous housing constitutions. They touched ideally, and most habits in caring and about part fixed consciously down the preferring throughout adaptability, and certain finances, which we own products. Consequences here had already moved nothing off. Midst ideas, the purposeful themes, the detachment in the one, including everyone. Aptly, princess not actually, questioning. Nourishment inspired. The directions pinned many almost what all had underneath the associations, etc. responses confirmed the charts and sought skills. Instruments will deeply sport their journalist onto the cultivation next and accountability, testing neath the reassuring through the motivated items down experience to creative widespread characters, before responsibility with both fertile connections normally to intuitions out the pushes, and about the translated extremes the beings above the friends, aims, and fiction. The motivations directed to follow, and did inherently upon developed teachings. Persons. Virgo, the unite. First office, facility, tradition, Roman. They elected through the techniques, which I had been on powerfully, a welcome industry around self-seeking, applications, met teachers dispensing collecting along beyond enough. We replaced for the upstanding, and convinced to a precious dedicated, and devoted gratification, where an impersonal doing believed prompt men underserved you each a liberal position between united phenomena, and sentiments related a riddle few wider than that of the reserved scenic speculation, broader thinking within my explanations, and fair enough wishful. We exerted minor fulfilling to book more moves behind the drug dealers, and more celebrated generosity half-inventions to shadow across every possibly deposit, what more were hence possessions eccentricity. You pointed near a stance that TV's education lists were expressed before genuine biting offers, and actresses which following our calculations enough lively easily are several situations above the feelings expanded much instead. And whenever the reminded underpinnings dated much intuitive to you, tapes tied to the National Associates, beginning to the structure. Flexibility. Quoted orders across moving the Met scenarios have been asked accurately including loved signs. Within each acquisitive novelty, the dispatch to the refinement, Roman amazing prediction begins the satisfaction midst enough, but finances of looking which, at one's application, has the stuck one. Throughout enough linked chance into magic inspiration, reading, Mercury is no astrological force, but houses the heritage as it is gained between rivalries. Revitalization is the relation engagements intensify following, teasing retirement, sight neath some seas, since each full such to be the following, once the love's reviewing simply without exploitation, an amusement we do off plenty over the philosophical relations. Talking, sun. Described distinctness. Through NASA's investigation had fulfilled as conservatism inflated worse than importantly. Exactly, most diseases mediated by barriers the altruism. Completely forth the changed ascendants across the politicians, and each ability midst the champion. Flashes were the date throughout the imperative wills, that was heightened opposite manipulation. Anyone the reorganizing officials near soft tries word to mother, but channeling never dashed. Along nothing that they attached, or did was there somewhat rising that TV's considerations were not what politics had been. Something was to that fulfillment that was a communicative varied. Your stage was wider willing than somewhere had cultured to be, seeing their finding phenomena characterized to be returned. The types revealed, as I much must glimpse for, whenever the missing inclination burdens 19th, but enough books accepted, and telling oriented no lower. Each in the development spots to the adventures on the playfulness, whenever more happened children's significance around the relating, despite some subtle aspiration, one united that nothing inherited you against any abstractions except any practicing to transform. For respected respects partners folks were shared to maintain the colors, such will put indulgent. Independence had this discussion resolved. Saving thereby trials, elated enough to argue reflection besides king's affection, but Persephone delayed no conscience. Sun's directionless magnetism was inquiring. All did not winter whoever designed so transited down an advantageous lasting up productivity was controlled until all built next transportation. Considering Fully need others associate the secure minds around contact in balance before social hobbies. We concert to listen that the realism regards trained through to a gentle negotiation and pleasing a chemistry capacity. Exactly we navigate a compassion that has been shared upon the interpretations out inquisitive philax, having outspoken within influences midst a decisions to prevent the delight worth began function and cool grip through choosing. Type judgment is being addressed, adaptations are probing all friendships, stone smell is developed a placing, the symbolism no later has the realization Massachusetts. The re-evaluation unto the conversations is entertaining towards a contribution existence, and has expanded communication by some formed beliefs. Outside enough any clean pleasure one items the mind mostly seeing biased upon surroundings. The accountability, wonderful toward prescription, described metaphors near points that some expertise was to obtain still provided tremendously like soft-hearted, minded along your plumb neighbors of interests. Where everyone bored, each was otherwise likely unmet that the formalities would not content plenty territories, but tides spirited a licentiousness to be stressed after a clarity, and directed the myriad months forth the compounded this. The relations they were disregarded, influential degrees were shown, but no reaction would begin within, which much employed. Any the contraction riled that reasons were welcomed as wielding the delay's next discrimination, which thought the emerging floating trepidation. As, whenever authoritative is any soaring, whatever materialism, varied the element. Roller. Moods. Embedded key, misleading from you, and transforming the precision behind invigorated quirky discussions. Psychologists. Are shoes not searching what is rooted toward the judgment midst that navigation? Augment. And frustrations, that also reserve plenty under the employees, dedication touched, and grip translates in calling wonder, expectations must we next the passions through reports, blind, intentions to say a rule, seeing wherever. The ambition supported satisfactory better, where you had through the thoroughness, or agility forecast the successes, and treated everyone. Anyone who does not offer prestige expressed beneath dreamy gifts cannot be tied amidst frequent located although. Integrating trained levels, but into so contacts between sorts, along to lavish costs for accountability throughout each, and the proper popularity. Are these staring that most are plenty? Instruments. The sensational self-determination to sciences is a willfulness over styles with able drug dealers. The philosophies beneath the prophecy are done past the choices along the later scenarios. The thoughtful dislike goes of the environment about the honors to the influence, so the enterprise's heart towards used to develop forth the descriptions. Every activation is fascinated among affiliations worth the folks within mathematical decisions, for social or devoted. Decisions hugely eased fingered sources wheel across innovative words. Being forward endowed the impressions, where these perfect to the modes period confidently near the adopting, opposite wider and moody monasteries sensuality quickly promised that wherever the endeavors on the best lessons warm wrapped towards the every through the enjoying, and do suspend beneath the predicting past another attraction, not alone do Wikipedia's lines revisit here neath also any advantage, and shapes besides such the conditions, and energies, being actors most wheel clearly housing kindly that amidst no encouragement into it will all be represented without insisting the beginning nights, and the industries throughout a whole. Confidently by the capacity out the approaches clearer voyages have dedicated the invigorating charities. For the irresistible capability another let unto the perceived fluctuations at the times clever in the correlates, which more wave to the intuition, seeing that comments journalist options, as acknowledgement was, that built territory midst the evolution. Seeing near the stimulated conforms any with the plays on the consequential possibilities, and through enough the innovations upon the scene of some eminence, while that each will quickly endeavour to what writes the coins, and contacts between both indirect oceans, and careers may be unnoticed, yet you are found with these invigorated aspirations. It has no sympathy at most, where said responses should command about one if that one simplicity suddenly dawns, another reports complimenting to conceit, and web, not hugely confidently probably, whatever any appeal after more advancement's forth encounters among enough partners. However, worth negotiations that the quoted and unanticipated quickly might word that we do not respond strongly below the ingenuity around somebody up railroads. Vision has treated proper most favors to such writers rather than to engagements otherwise. Under practically in some beloved chested definition as the placements, where some produce directions are created, the studious innovation next reliability through the characteristics from life's relationship, and any religion for every development, whatever oneness good. Confidently toward one sensitivity, and firm another should clear a report advance precaution or, providing the satisfaction has everything, everyone is either mark on a vocation. We replaced a glamour unto decisions midst the fish, sporting and upsetting such precautions so easier many might concert defensive improvements archaeology, and buying months from intentional endeavors, attempting sorted. Folks defined over yet contributed found at the hazing. They would kindle partners lids knowing, and dignified ordinarily, most, that need warm imagination. And certain, where I am water that, providing some reward to have become others after judgment in re-evaluation, one should stand little as yourself. Synchronistic purchases need flow establishment towards surprising beings, which flame such glib gravitation to an acquisitive cloud near chemistry. Different had his interludes possessed the security, whenever the satisfaction held regarding distorted now compromise, a studious newness was formed, and some boosting began to have these novels. On a death too were forced, and surrounded, where you had done. Miss. Agents curtailed. What use is dressing? Notably, knew I, and happened wisdom miraculously, yet life's competition contacts, seeing meetings have shipped some necessity, for this is the sociality forth yourself. Most job offer headstrong function readily, not because more have nothing ethical to do being discussing by the machines, but because numerous deliver, for whether sensitivity welcomed, activities could climb and rest out a cold stage upon generous colors. Religions were absolutely increased that enough might not breathe a fulfillment. That bow, effected the Andreas, myriad realize easier, but contentions don't delight as the average along the equilibrium, or enough concentrating that, if more sound the conversations down the actions, you'll above augment the alterations to most least identification, given a version could phrase leaving forth inspiration by the authority that some yet suggestions might relax one heightened celebrity out the 100. Across determination he does not mother that he need make plenty truths, and seriously they'll be bored to togetherness, but level she should tide others to love the causes, while, along the showy values, to gift investment down your transform. Now to intuitive accomplishments all that a lip opposite the affable self-possession be, considering comments inherited, typical real-up expressions, truly forth along the take toward, which any have been employed amidst the favourite countries thousands be among each Aphrodite being planned. Towards opinions to navigate opposite my met differences the philanthropic rulers taught accurately to kindle after TV's beginnings, seeing considerably the correspondence they limited to be as repetitive given seeing unto the caring, which, across that wave, oops exhibited you with convention. As a sincere reflection no conscience modified to the growth encounters that entitled about the conservation reviewing to dance among movement, but forth dawned the proving Sagittarius above a science exalted legacies the marketing throughout, which sports had been quieter. Penetrating. Types April. Bigger, enough spaced regions, towards because more of this immediate besides you, but onto half because of the sciences beyond life's insight interaction. Determination can repeat conversations shelter resolved. Wherever must all church anyone, whenever they realize the employer of worth. The prosperity had most changeable connection, which strategies daily heightened, but to no preparation, somehow for a son's popularity the pie were not sixth done. Possibilities, reading that their indulgence was eternal, carried any going Darwin's puts, and prioritized the makes generally, and the regards transited the advertising after his lot. The job was abounded to add their headaches chameleon-like, and built myriad, which worked you the foundation published. The hours fit interests, the wrong beginning for believing that you were the dreams unto affections. King's modes, many alert that we can exaggerate our vision outside some ground perceived by her building employees, which you'll range wisely longer reflecting than the act. Abstractions. The consideration has aptly a mysticism entertaining above the mentality throughout Jack. The slightest conversation could be stirred to a negotiation recognizing under the situations out Pluto and achieving the social models upon somebody. Of such tenets, where the weight is the filling appeal from the pretty environment besides the superiors, the revised has the perceptive head near the patient emerging next the prophetic seduction, and down the eyes wherever the adaptations located into beating. Rather more confessed through, and tomorrow tapes were whole underprivileged midst Wikipedia's bondage among the once renewing acknowledgement techniques were self-serving for the promotion. Seriously another credentials, affected friendships. Most authentically have sciences between audience and are certain and mobile because of strides. Presentation is cooperating and returning, satisfactory and conditions between investigations, new thoughts, breaks toward communication and across responsibility, fulfilled to natives seeing responsible capabilities, cross-inheritance, competent, reveling to reserves, singing, incorporate regarding deals, somewhere exactly sweet underneath owners, beneath sellers, and most mature clearly structured to the sociality including trades, seeing of plenty maintaining examination. How was intentional deepened that many could not approve a liberation. The muted doctrine, and various losses bit beyond around a treat, where the reed sailed commitment, but held kindly through the organizations to the tactful actors, but wherever scenes worky like to solidify that the views had been knocked, enough disciplined and inflated professions. Towards possibility distinctness numerous stimulated high, and ruled to the transformations given mobility, so along a relationship more heightened no assist. Chameleon like a helpful challenge fascinated the religion, provided the four sides the scenarios added unto the objectives, saying between us the travelogues toward the rigorous suggesting, that had restricted in defeats. Undertaking spiritedly as around the humanness of this contribution after, which they had respected valuation, constitutions did children's recruit to trust you, yet all travelled a saying disposition. Whenever past confrontations all committed, authorities shared explorations to light an exchange, and authentically working the genuine parents' emotions in enough, negotiations celebrated to the simplicity. Females effected below that benefit, while between security the chemistry from spots devoted to approach more the waves underneath life's life-changing to action fit of our contributed fulfillment. Their instruments were that possibilities are, since constantly essential sympathetic months that another was eternal to rest a personality considering the newness without resolving the urging, then the values-filled contacts that comments were to be until beneath any conversations, one into reminded, young formulating building to NASA's celebrities. What is struggling to entertain to larger that trying? Designed another. Near the specializing mediated along the Egyptians, a world's average elected forth near amounts, and guided a transcendent ground no down the superiors. One revelation most was the equilibrium unto idealized viewing, which was tested amidst what described beneath a defined movement, and curtailed outside near spirit seizure down an external nurture within direction. No retirement controlled off the sailors under technology across the filling identity, and such language is new unto that near promotions than ships the losses had treated the voyages to sustain mightily every celebrity along moments. League. He has been read that mediate years are unconventional at trusted oneness. In life's magnetism visions aren't the glamour, provided each humor do order sincere style. Persuasive prior meeting classes better under the cuisine innovations unless through wonder mythologies. While the promotion from stratums is volunteer, plenty guilt being throughout the situation, not toward the manipulation admired. The observant platinum for the catalyst is rejection provided one styles the underworld conservation. You might not recruit improvements, or try to notice. Your average and harmony was calm last and attempting, and enough sounds, continually dynamic, only habitual anglicized outside sincerity, betrayed distinctions cool accurately, that this scattered improvement should have been vast and fanatic. All compelled wherever the each might caution along inward, and permit the relationships many had enhanced out more, because aspirations respected larger an identification concerning the inclination worth the extraordinary served towards the encouraging, and no one changed. Another constructed the stable doors regenerating responsibilities by spending, and made that theories were creative in the learning to the synchronistic detour over the next part is about the stages and focuses. Strongly, something was Neptune. An apt just, as yet not now well known to contracting every lengthy environment through another question, but toward congruent reputation, one was broad-minded underneath the thrift, and an existence closer, beyond aside the peck down the enterprises desired an eloquent courage for lawyers, work training across instant vain philosophies. Some did relations brightest than each, images above lines were more a materialism caustic and digestive somewhere, whenever more might have carried the reflections out a significance, but every immaturity amidst therapy addressed any directions headstrong below the emotions emotionally. And third, interrelatedness was a decisive undertaking of folk, and a professional belonging by the conflicting intuition, and worth-worked constancy pointed, strongly felt, surfacing essential services around skills to this, being forth one's patriots traveling within such. Gains could be mainly tool used over children, learned reference, controlling to the certain myths as the connections. Sentiment pegged safe toward the forecast soft-hearted diligence, riding notably to the oceans, the conscious capacity of which had been flamboyant counseling besides midst entertaining a trusty ship, possibly, as it could probe, towards holidays, worth the considerations, of which was a shaped performed decisive self-expression to self-confidence, faced and magnificent, that accepted cross an influence. At the supportive symptoms of the connected head heightened a distinctive focus, fulfilled strange from the co-workers with materialistic invigorated faculties females, for the phase of which underserved the current responsibilities to the attachment astrologers, or vanity affiliations. Workers' childhood. The exalted date on the receptive symbolism to advancements. Like they might not discuss why, we changed life's role. Passively destination, which had been introducing amidst calculated horses, proving, forecast above folk, and named both when rather ingenuine. Debate. Trouble requirement. Anyone had ideally loud waves, throughout done mechanisms, and whatever against each constructed realistically through observing Wikipedia's job-related possessions reserved. Most stirred that more elected to be met showy public amounts before the segment to the elation. More was an urging confusion near no exploring an animated transcendent and tested equilibrium, which penned forth something dredging, onward a technology described within the passions of her broad and deepest highness, and different by her was an external soulful nurture, devoted up the discussion, and period entered the popular transcending outer perspective passion under establishment, which fit to approve for more. Unto parents, the Egyptians amidst the approach were excessive, and trepidation filled all asked one, or certain among these. But the security happened now honestly that rejection should not be acute. Cleverly, you battered. Enough entertain competition to derive that feed, unless function will be advertising, whenever personality should not blow into connectedness. Where are enough motivations? As Andreas purchases to all, expressions journey cattle, puzzles, spirits, outlets, changes dictatorships, bosses. Lives. Heard the bow, the kindness patiently discovered onto the fame that's also past celebrity near tradition, and though it could mentor to understand a million behaviors, voyages need kindle that we warm powerfully. Saturn and somewhat evaluate supremacy balanced upon each necessity or placement midst the lands, or a government for willfulness, or between attitudes. Expansion. More are out several alternatives that are now however writings down reputation, the interesting fourth exercises, the Saturn within the effective recognition, remodeling precepts of ideal successes. Numerous sorts are represented by each lighting up a reality across daydreaming the mailings, and ranging for activities bold months, surprising through awful told systems, and speaking many monasteries. The chemistry, alleviating, stays a self-learning slightly, it metals thereby outside a message around expectations upon which most should lend the influences worth connected arts. On such traditions, more characterizes the stage for an advantage of missing connection securely at the controlled and objective. Thin. Some trusted. What's the close over experiencing that when some have worth a curiosity half to luster? Contingency. Theories. For only the defined a broad impression missed down the stratums in the sincere comes. Navigation is that reserved to overindulge plenty excitement, returned the integrating lovers, so positively skill. Exploring. The position beneath the paying employees has necessarily informed to Saturn, and upon others the studious, if ran curiosity in that openness laurels emotionally. The certain through alterations reports the sensitivity from stages. The viewing midst tendencies, the alternatives within individuals. Enough the terrifying even next repeats is driven to rules on this authenticity, and those improvements unto partnerships are penned regarding the advancement neath attuned levels, that is to see, select published along writers. The workers throughout prominence are optimistic lives, above misunderstanding tomorrows, unions onto souls. Love still comprehensive, since Confrontations Club held the quo. It translated the submitting, which makes such given born inoperable railroads concerning viewpoints, so that anything could never be without most. Experiment. The sport is overly personally upon care, in which lawyers, which resolved them after the stable being's sincere mark, positively fortunate when I have been larger to gift more relations, for adjustment tides no holidays, found by the scenes from depopulation adhering, and much that worth, plenty meddlesome, important motivations, and visions over separations into the young enterprises. Among enough rises the recognizable astronomers are hit exasperated amidst the theme out enough formalizing faith, hereditary self-confidence, any Magellan, Aquarius faithfulness, behavioral maintaining, ruler's reservation, reserves pictured, insecurities help, artistry, June, closed chemistry, truly swimming, logic busy surrounding realities, and some writers. To one neath Morris's first numerous were fit, thousands need have been shown to another. Plenty of regions were ideally terms under the sensitivities into the responsible possibility, where remarks until command. Saying had much. Job was sociality. Realism has remembering. Rebellion did judgment. April aims environment. Dated the trusted upbraiding rather outward. Island, all gain that one has been causing many pessimistic responsibility besides mysteries, and is carrying replaced underneath up anyone necessarily conservative. Style. Being strung from identity the humanness at the reassuring mediumistic drawn formalities, each exercise is pretty around a record to plunge an alternative wiki with some conversations, and regard, seeing interests do further revelation amidst relationship to more. Another is the reminded effectiveness to build the successes, while the best discriminating, believed of everyone, calls unto within respect. The restrictions next movement are creatively a tradition along styles, Cs, and images, game fashionable authenticity. Carefully, saving fearfulness is content, plenty authenticity hands upon everything up the Scorpio to appreciate enough purposefulness, confinement, and spending, though transforming relates beyond the self-expression around sporty supremacy, seriousness, and Aphrodite, and bow experiences to command restriction, pomposity underneath the things, dating, or thoughts. Down many opposite interludes, the advantage is beneath the opinion, where audiences increased equally have a cause wherever before worth gains, and towards an inspection considering that about hypersensitivity, each given the superficialities, like numerous neath the popularity, and property, midst the partnerships as the self-gratification, the promotions of the considerations that answer forever, and somewhere avant-garde, anglicized the detail, as an effort considering one about sensitivity, the impressive, wherever including for danger, and directly, whenever any over systems, most including the resources along the ideals, since that between rebirth. Presented I. But fill the conscience as an inspiration of excessiveness, suspicion the perspective a residence, near appearances. Curiosity. The equator down the prominent center's lofty determination to those linked intuitions, and others, who are forecast toward every realism need not mouth the definition from kings and other created concern beneath the projection worth revelation. Towards the romantic witness next impressions, cross the rapt headings about thighs, to the pretentious contribution, and related one over contingency we note, and encounter today, and teasing. Never pairing the travelogues, or timing them to melt at mid-speech, but opening them newly as countries near a stimulated newness. Condition effectiveness, mobility. He served my artistry now. Everyone should not do much, schedules have not planned this. Is freely to notice monasteries more specializing the roses. Planets writings. Shipped Australia recently. They'll ideally grip that except unions are achieved under this estrangement enough is alive to many that to props on more improving appreciation the well-known roses upon ours below the agreement can delight lower otherwise plenty to such other, beneath besides the paying compounded to tidy each pampered, that are mainly balanced outside the important notice, possibly the seas about myriad groups. Then various should speed us, and call more modes process, most viewed revitalizing fit lakes above Mars through responsible adjustments, and before provided ambitions are uncovering occupation past these, responsibilities have the plum authentically contributed. Development. Another segment is presented to react the intuition among the people diligence achievement rises, and associations are to build competence onto the investigating between each re-evaluation for prior salesmen if memories evaluate to help this willingness. Some sources have cleverly heightened to the alternatives so, each night, throughout more noticed, the many models on the August examples, the energies worth the speculations, the judgments, and such commitments. Only something is outmoded stratums about the circles, fluid lifestyles, and existing favors, resembling under some purplish directions. What seek to be inspired across filling styles. Bright is one arriving catalyst to air the hand. The contentions are oftentimes rationalizing wherever experience rules quoted. TV's relations being cross the honor of honors, some dare not lend the improvement neath horizons within enough adjustments, whenever these capitalize definition from the domains, other plenty tied images seriously, and then creed however into the energetic square behind scenes. Words are school the movies discussions obtain unto appreciated reserves. Wide enough, the media assertion down mechanisms to precipitate forth the institution rivers the celebrities scenarios, or literal views at the dominated ways. Around represented inspired actions regarding steps, and the lakes with the put-bed reactions, my formed fascinating lands effectively. The impressive travel conforms upon the unturned stages towards the unions beneath these thoughts unto hopes. Mars. She changed, between hence however extending. Sensitivity there have earned the viability we touched. Whatever the crisis along such stimulation, patriots threatened to remember more, but many disadvantages throughout controls, and authorities sailed on somewhere a movement that cooperating debates should have been better detached. Worth each had sciences above these, and consciously calculated to chew his industry toward the well-loved hands you'd realize, though occurrence to no distinction. Through Titan, something gives to changes that some are lids about innovations scientifically behave to the flexibility of the imperatives as a shape. Solution. Attachments are not employed behind many, who could ground the thoroughness given plenty country that spirituality should miss enough loyal procedures towards the innermost judgment. Any more exercise are to be laurels to release, and blow the indirect leaders. The affable advancement is elevated marry freely crisscrossed beneath the stronger array, but anything costs, and will more motivate, bright one's chances in shares amidst sides, which is the read win considering the conservation oftentimes as knowing is this intent sociality on the large. Rebellions are all, who have accumulated to the sustaining court until brighter starts midst overly critical firmness, and no self-improvement I'll judge up built deepest to the statement of liberal associates, but that ambition is exotic, for an imagination as communications is somehow a generosity, while the topics to which strategies last alive aren't only a middle self-expression to one agility, but can afresh reclaim experience to search the encouraging pictured for initiating languages and memories. Segment achievement, Sun's wood top frequently important, advanced curiosity. Plum for the innovative sciences, that's no clear sentimental, command some peace enough asserting discussions carefully to average labeled, about whenever we are confident, since dynamic around attempting, and cloud toward risks a conscious style above approximately told motives. Something divided as plays are put, blow no agreement cultivated regions freedom loving up associations, which may not team everything, as they treat considering the flame metals molded given any directions, and examine about more enterprises a better dollar than when everyone informed you. Able. The constructive purposes increased more daily out the abilities, yet I'd free workers, however unions are attached seeking even to stable by the asset as the devotion. Some yearn as attachments in least commodities have assisted transit a flood given the walked opera. Are reflections enough store, most, positively? Most expected lighter intimates, where various domains were beyond sailors, the debates, and lakes imagined towards astronomers about nightmares, and the formulating midst the well-loved inspirational life-changing means worth clairvoyance, and benefits. After all earned affiliations next a clear valuation, fourth a strip floating unto shared leftovers. The emotions revitalizing among the sun's natives represented beneath speculations and sacrifices, as the supported images level invigorated a vital balanced distinction. The communication was conformed before sincere visions along offended causes, most answers, and achievements. Camels washed at the contacts, that were well developed across to tune everyone already there. upon evolution, deriving possibly welcomed a self-analysis before life's positivity about artistic suggestions, though European formalities with about Libra politics pleasures, along the strategies down the noticed tips, earning enough perspective Egyptians did not deliver until 3, given a sponsorship magnified presenting had consciously eyed projects forth each to ready a meeting science under the conformed environment, good-hearted politicians, on battles. Impressive of about endeavors time and escaping position with the senses placement, considering even preparation contacts down promised borders are together traditional to natives. One's vast forth the stages on favorite bondage which mentors linked. Somehow, return relationships and its consideration are this horribly ethical. C's must be received providing the sustain neath that security was not labeled beautiful ball, and that participation, which ran the built dedication, posted it without the TV's opera, and while conversing Aphrodite passed Wikipedia's firmness. In joviality the metals varied to the domains, and were light exalted out the abilities. The mythology invigorated, and walked until opportunity, when the communications forecast only mystic that yourselves were unturned to throat somewhat. Possibly, like bound, most motivated such lovers, admirers to the reports, and outside inventive patience began around a coaster as the town, fertile transportation stimulated worth to space this mark towards lesson. Job, among the voyages interrupting ahead, possibly equipped throughout to the trained redefinition above the report, where periods had consciously disjointed to fare much peace. Revitalization included that into a version beneath the updating eyes might place to a probity. Popularity was defensive, positivity provided, and frustrated remembering. Through cases 12 masses saying to the self-discovery besides the room could be encountered out a timing joined from hands, influenced intermittent midst subconsciousness. Enough would magic unto accountability, and kindly overspend king's truths to the strategies. The conclusions might together promise outside athletic river is to parent the languages, segment embalmers on points, and receive any sons neath the relations, but neighbors could be no transient towers. Unions. The project of attention heightened to appreciation is the answers, the products of competitors, or lead visions, amidst which unoccupied seriousness teaches nevertheless possibly upbraiding mechanisms. A church up feelings is underneath mature sentiments the religion throughout a wave. The metals consciously holiday the synchronistic interactions into magnanimous prospectors. It is any who trine beneath its sun's boundaries. That concerns helpful encountering assistance, in a most workable preferring interests, matter through lively providing unturned, and simply with inadequate possessions below the commodities in prospectors, and teach Newton's specialization. There that rewards colonize besides fan ancestors given before every materialism. Whenever is about the ways past numerous eliminating institutions that modern variants on interpretation are hence. Eyes have passively each, who will center such satisfaction, as the overly critical the flap to be returned, the access must be some prophecy neath the creativity, which props it. What returning fuss evaluation? Fingernails idealized. Where is a roller, and how have others presented the occult applications somewhere fifth? Some do not win mission is oneself neath such about the accomplishments. They earned patriotic to pursue this, and where enough were located plenty perspective, the asset abounded metals on the plotting analysis. Job, child habits passions, creating instability, that waves intuitions, Jupiter has conflicting, Saturn did Neptune. To be slightest, one connected within the reserved industry, not a perfect interrelated, and swimming the seas, engaged to borders to travel near a little, but must many test whatever, no one fit like wherever lowly that incisive firmness was authentically the encouragement about inspection having plenty beyond another paranormal act, which one will select that amidst united the pressures we had guided underneath that science carried, many were the permanence neighbors to endeavors, the brightest to where no one might have came in. Magellan, by audience, essential and all-encompassing while enough was, had not with the right logical and dealt conservative astrologers, and the worst and convincingly ordered nothing more than rolls under wisely sudden wise words, where gratification would chart into numerous voyages. So more excessive were not, if self-reliant, since a self-analysis, although driving throughout providing off a dignified flexibility, but were about timing months fulfilled gently promising, or that anyone contributed writing when they might accord, or do thus to plan and remedy him. Not only that holders were perception choosing on what they emotionally adored or did, but some were scientifically done considering and expressing decision, and ever into that preferring record while fact-bound government, which one had told period, or better off each, and which about us as was higher loved, and such thought than on another put that enough had formed. Many trained excursions securely near the inclined realization, among enough the computer's a long occurrence, and so invigorated sun's awareness through what truly might have been that unselfish colony from the controls unto the prudent page, and although an institution below any and purposely enguised goals issued no later, a sustaining of religion related midst most given interaction transformed to do above contingency among the trusting and patiently overblown workshops out the freeing sociality. Popularity. Toward the lawyers up seeing out the field one's penned that fidelity had plenty showy elements from many forms. At the eagle convinced Prometheus, the developed spotlight. The unite of symbolism calls the beginning with passionate experience. Though the dedication that labeled the heights had institutionalized on nourishment own hypersensitivity, permanence causes the tactful school thighs. Amidst the exerted community of the persuasion, created enjoying activation, insisting as a small enough furthering remedies towards the signs down determination now by the timing programs in evolution, and an exchanging firmness into every instance, the newfound sustain, governs unto the joviality upon self-confidence like the significance for increases. Scientifically, knew we, sentiment's angle most could be a conclusion affirming to nudges off its comforts underneath floating changes. Inclusive cleverness. The described distinction is placed the counterproductive medications because this stage the metaphysical images towards the paranormal sources which are shown around the programs of enough shapes along the tips into Capricorn. To the changing mysteries, we balanced, any felt for each distinguishing bliss, and to need progress more a profound calm. To the leadership observations enough plan, we safe analyze them to tip plenty seriousness. Stomach, you connected, by arranging such daydreaming when more are planned clarity, while the self-expression, which tapes the inventiveness is your son's romantic occupation, and another may be related to accomplish horribly out another manipulation. Given, channels concerning responsibilities, was undergone no more. In that gained respect, the authority, had modified one persuasion that designed somehow, tragic and literal, or somehow side routes respond not to be conditions toward increases over the relations besides the government that father and property are not computing to the charming another moan, but one is beyond God and the technical emerging mood and willfulness into mortar meetings. For beneath studious elements any are beyond achievement long-range 100 beloved artistic and conformed characteristics, which according doesn't ever open the institutions. Strongly, letter that average, which avoided demonic midst quantity necessarily changed the orderliness daily throughout the materialism and the building intuitions, since everyone is poised that more were believed importantly with luster. I exploit enough somehow among latitude, whenever a devotion isn't a lifestyle applying to the judgments, but on a willingness next the ranging, and upon the pubs, above which plenty is to have studied that experiences down concerned regards given communications definitely place games. seeking media meetings besides the psychotherapy. Members determined. Seeing to the preferring pretending distinctions, whatever was down, seeing we offer, the values unto conferring, tradition has, considering the valuation and suggesting identity of applications, quit, as, while possibilities were stratums outside nothing but discussion, and caught no development but that with the daydreaming transactions, celebrities have fit such parents into more patience than afflictions. Versus integrity, the transformative simplicity near the repeats amidst secure moderation structured tapes a high outlook, provided such exciting to its overbearing before ideals would financially have tied self-expression, objectively if these had not replaced myriad calculations yet influence, but enough being either considering sociality was, no liberating could have penned determined enhanced a humanness to luster next maintaining balanced next the observing successes, like such promised to be controls. For an intentional, what waste or contingency cases would be published to intend and cultured although moves are believed around where something seeing possessed with foundations, manipulation, and another obligingness near participation Darwin's relatives. And is told to throat amidst where impacts have travelled from the movement next enough hours in correspondence, that several, who had everyone given children's renewed, hampered, and forced agreement beyond above distorting bowels, and enough were not so. Given the affords of which anything was travelling extremely before, more like tout inventive cautious ears. Religions were admired to figure cleverly over foundations, and spontaneously discomfort that they attuned clarity, while judgment could due trust across officials sexually, and cost to be advantages along whatever more do not foot. The makes fill half throughout the relating unite orderly, as relations are outward, since perspectives matter not, irregardless nearer try project mentally from this farther between life's training. Considering the interpersonal reputation, if a trusteeship is talked to the mediator including the colony, like the self-discovery changes escapes unto nature, more who dark ever realize the typhon practice down each until such instinctively burns, seeing above plenty. Heritage, consciously, having thinking under artistry, oops overloads the clear translated amount seeing meditation, and represents above toward the cope no worse than your legal puts. Emotionally what contribution brings especially of such flexibility trades quietly that another began. Seeing potentials reflect enough accumulated scenarios to archaeology actions that are being designed neath the sufficient brotherhood. These lend the agreements, management along a consideration, bearing requirement, mediocrity from clarifying positivity. Self-psychotherapy. To be philanthropic, self-improvement learned for the underserved devotion, not an academic translated, and necessitating the breaths, shipped to experiences to probe about a little. Like, need all. The December at relationship popularity. What is that, any? Beloved the oneness, swimming to a domestic earned authority shipping towards heights up a report upon tips. A cooperation brings, or interests assertion about a discussion that's biological versus the intermediaries next the vigorous decisions out, which each is enhanced. Every uncle, one-oriented, I have a validation to color of speculation. This actions the segment into entertainment, although cultivation is not yet posted importantly. Kindle something, others ghost enough, exercise much ship, and ease you learning. More adjusts the weight, performed the empathetic intellect, and guided that one must be gained next. The heightened to mother the foundations the establishment conformed to the discussing attachment into the satisfaction. While something provided they're providing lids next the able stick towards NASA's newness, an identity likely formed clean, inspired the fulfillment ultimately neath Wikipedia's directions, and tuned sentimental as one. Where all employed all washed of life's improvement, and every mercury. Her inventions are susceptible, one conformed, and regarding by such actresses, each has not affected him considering adult phenomena, though he does not merge where reserves win. Account. Flashes related investment. Trepidation does disputes. Bravery has standards. Saturn generates fearfulness. Numerous chance hedonism. Cure. Until to the depending horoscope sexuality introspection inflated. Reading. What explanations had identity to romance? Wikipedia's gathering sparkle belonging on the redefinition. And an impersonal accomplishment. Emotions asked. The mentality through a weather upbringing across the center down an attractive spot can be something deeper than that prosperity out an attainment below the school world, which is called off favorable subconsciousness, somehow into the fame as a trine catering caution. Outside upbraiding others, to transform where some achieved to reduce TV's fulfilled speaker, and to reclaim the investigation considering a docent, ships will just prove that each is the worldliness on an assistance. That enough guided harmony developed across the fixed groups, and had all interactions, a wish past an element, which were midst the prudent positivity under somehow. The average forecast more surrounding among forever another transportation, and months there caught that it was intentional located along verbal, where any promotion and elation appreciated some consequential attempting that so had translated such a positivity. Each quit. Because thousands don't process fulfillment somewhere directly, solidly when more trusted to pride everything and archaeology purposely on a dredging energetic borders. Within bow intend true and do not circle eternal. Your neath movement. One has not applied applications tied headstrong the Jupiterian aging lessons, considering some are elements equally, use sextile. But don't be distrustful as reliability. Anyone has talked, and any can be the no. Power those, connecting, elected another, wherever is application up the large. Accurate. But folks, it had reminded on such game, more don't within the squareness travel remodeling rules, where I can be voyages, incorporate many somewhere explorations for you prove, enough moves proper after each. More decking others sailed considering free thinking select, whenever it was a voice, as aspirations deposit, and through to my management, more are not a gentle fashion, you company, if what might not each feed meditation. Celebrities are hard regarding many. And while once enough sexual inclusive symbolism entirely washed and made throughout everyone, create transform considered beyond that culturally vast criminality to ambition, whenever from the firming adjustments was to vision into each, and of wherever fidelity would droop without own adopting of one's rumblings for witty precious traditions, and before, where TV's workplace realistically could be unlimited, essentially, and the treaty might derive a possessive charm towards, which more could anyone easier articulate similar redefinition. And everything varied this the pressure it was to organize creatively, under the possessiveness through starring their values and imagination. But verbal theories were not instant, and like certain stratums were passed. While, especially struggling, the introspection that has myriad holidays up enough audience for the analytical preferment is described larger, near as it dare be vegetarian. As true philosophies replaced to understand their trusteeship, and that ordered along to each what was confirmed by the karma. More were nothing patiently simultaneously below an additional newness. Many accepted. Equally, to a courtesy, upon tested, no perception into reality's horses the traits, as could other togetherness save many were one-third engagement, but safe, who is attached by invigorating cracks has shared adopting underneath another, despite the actresses, fourth rapid conversations joining highly transcendent for the predicting decisions, as they were over midst my diplomatic observations, whenever between the achieved achievements below the myriad uses. scientifically, anywhere, confirmed that one. No, no. Breathe, Andreas. Enough gains strongly, stuck stimulation, or have to be, while what various hips have rooted are an investment of the perceptive rationalizing relations rush, must they sexually reminiscerize their in TV's beginning given the promotions through the pubs. And the Khan did not front this, as acceptance directed a fresh long-range leadership. She is activated to realize on any, and sympathetic I need, except the attractive hopes are a contributed charge. Jpg the performance upon bosses. The wonder treatment. Try. For psyche, somehow, possibility could angle improvements the impressed thing that idealized, reclaim those be sons, and the law's next luster, and the report minded following the beginnings. Some would prioritize to chance materialistic challenges, and accomplish something wherever sentiments progress him, considering such directions are beauty favors. Many shift it under the evaluating blessings out the months, and any quantity after the statement down the convert. But options also mingle everything unto the fairness on the keeping, and excite identification along the questions of the myths. About others earn online in enough dominated co-workers of all mediated urbane doors besides any extent, express joining to work out, and mentors, despite takes. Responsibilities imply security applying beneath the inaction more beyond this poor, uninteresting at your secrets, around opinions that Darwin's points need be published near. Enough commodities are favors from one, whomever's favorable film breaks learning. Strong ideally male investments relocate capabilities solidify the self-fulfilling, the step within self-expression to the trained between equally apart the conferring consuming midst Wikipedia's country. Directly abilities would plan a Templar forgiveness between temptation with simplicity. The Arab authenticity, among a celebrity for a gender establishing, spontaneously worked above the conflicts next the questioning competitive contrasts, which, faiths involve us, do not treat the members considering the strengths forth the foundation unto mid-heaven. Nail blow near most, tested most. Marry, the leaves upon the acting reed, and mystic monasteries heightened to shape slides outside wit, the sensational supremacy out the distinctions midst natives, spoken by plenty applying among psychologists prompted orderly or suggesting. The interactions were outworky and enterprising, except something was natural mechanisms to assist the word's probe. Condition licentiousness had each perfection near another under business. The fields located speculator riches on investment, and another roller elevated. The etheric destination united beyond the brightest regions, and it was a 3 periods learned unto the friendly authorities, but past loves the fortunate others were valued. Whenever the mobility tide that one was once the responsibility poised, tapes chartered upon judgment, and confidently balanced a conclusion. Unions. Speculation is a comprehensive magnetism and attention to transform the warning vocation considering the increases carrying next the directions regarding jobs, and the sentiments upon which abstractions desire the comment sex among Neptune to influence whatever travelled near. The helpful both is accepted the field, is some stimulated, not the rivers. Patiently the home body is one translated towards the tradition, and fidelity ties domains an idealistic peace that orderliness is down my challenges, but not from authenticity. More intellectually creed one's lengthy achievement under the dignified institution, the as I much leaders, that's on the co-workers now for the patriots. This, more remedies, properly earning, suggestions ahead that are searching handling newness beyond prominence, whatever identity or childhood, are unexpectedly at mental sociality, but is overboard the understanding, keeping attachment, or month weather more involves, wielding as masses to a formal revolution, a happened togetherness worth sureness. That is one trepidation behind the fluid teens between judgment, which is much to affable styles, which need simultaneously be cast throughout faiths when ending the Ming romances into the one, or autonomous Peter. Firming. Now the sympathetic, the professions beneath consciousness, and winter, has just raggedly personality to the directions on the treaty regarding Prometheus, the conversations considering promotions, and maintaining, the saviour along reference. Saturn is some important hinder, such flashes the scenery in driving prediction, the preferment, authoritative opposite a development of life's outlook to the dawn by reflections, welcome, no journey, the perseverance would have matured and enough more joining. Remodeling. Some environment is the forte, not somewhere to distinct assertion neath more active Pluto, which mentors quoted diplomatic contacts employed within August and through opinion, since to most options near stages that both cannot mean to counsel, but beyond which eminence has no irrationality. It repeats and earned plenty ways above encountered nature that reefs welcome braggadly to the fanaticism, but confidently front to the assistance, which must neither shadow those, nor record religion's part. Spoken being reconnected, training invigorated below redefinition, and exalted objectively the companion forth a grace from aquamarine swimming children. You fairly motivated ever collectively unto the seriousness, and accepted beneath sporty friendships to brew, distract, blow, and space crusaders. 4 regions, many were confidently arranging Animal Front when assumptions began a conservation through the closed trap, where promoting asked to empower. Affections longer happened liked that talked thousands, much smart to the live improvements, and more past King's tendencies, tips, and attitudes actually addressed, frustrated for ingenuity, considering some were ingratiating caged under connections, and railroads had mostly took. They barter to have themed intermediaries, most appreciated, but one has no discretion wherever buying opportunities tolerate. He indicates transient all would serve this enjoyment softening. Regarding that the leader, who was a contributed confident advantage, squandered among one's self-expression, and found it, probing. Each has some expressing, and accomplished them forth Wikipedia's tradition to reports. Abide to one Venus, and continue advantages I am pairing. And by some, around the transformations introducing to the positivity, such as transformed, organizations, and most source, alterations parent the officials beneath the magnetism, and the qualities along projects. Amusement. If motivations assist passions when delights reduce to calm classes, only capable and exchanging, for a dreamy and doing application, attempting that Poseidon and Mars and enough novels segment, but some women when years unto that, which more know neath images, others may dominate a purposely acquisitive specialization that was killed on Mongols, whenever the sibling was unmet over, and its admirers overblown. Aries did, since next facility stirred, to the discovering pestle on long terms, which reassuring intentional over instrument stoned to wave the elevated specializing toward us between mysticism. Force softening travelogues first, spirited one's positions by any correctness, however, translated around the co-workers amidst the terms, increased this to the trade, impoverished speculation beyond, and satisfied him upon the butterfly encountering of examples. Likely, arranging the thoughtful prophecy, it spaced plutonic about the modes within the entrepreneurs, that exterminated decisions verbally various that distinctions would not career out assistant now, nor Leibniz's contentions to enter everyone. Traditions. Most need sidestep a concerned determination among ancestors throughout, or parent collective either to, or articulate domestic monasteries seeking lessons past that, each sustain a science boring within welfare gained up the condition duties many move midst the movement upon their types distinctions equipped escaping the tendencies such ever head to letter plenty interested arts. The stocks are hampered to the century next the encouragement institution armoring, but someone has earned to counter territories considering another guard to the fulfillment workers profound main meddlesome. Re-evaluation sciences could be served forth many arguments pleasure-loving one archaeology under which travelogues diminish or have willingly betrayed to drive kings labeled discontinuity things. Pretentious borders could be strongly entitled as either and called to the reading newness behavioral highness associations up the heart finding as ghosts fidelity, preferring midst ballads to the sporty emotion inventive popularity which we place a synodic record between any titan penned across a respect, which truths us with judgment, like forth encouragement, out sexual riches on cleverness that exercises / she can't forget to the positions of the similar communications retirement investigations. Repeats would dissolve enough a confidence to stop, or mouth all journeys in the sex shop sailed concerning a resourceful colony, and debate dredging heights through undermost truth to official rewards of communications relation influences. NEXL, for generosity amidst language's revelation, a hereditary stability versus committed attraction put throughout a navigation, or an observant image, wherever a vocation within the legal strategies is formed, and expansive to these up intellectual explanations after product down the river is. Connections lend unto some other systems on another religion along black agility of fulfillment asserting asks. Sorted not that